Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work with us. And we have a lot of people signed up for tonight, so we're going to get right to it. And just so you know, guys, there won't be an open mic tonight because we've got like 11 or 12 people signed up. So if you were hoping to read something during the open mic, there's always next week. All right, so first up tonight is Alex. And Alex, you're actually going to be, I think, reading a piece that we published, I believe.
Yeah, howdy everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm gonna read two love things. The first is called Bruises. Yep, it was published with you guys, and then a short poem called Love.
Hey Alex, I should remember this, but do you have a Twitter that you want me to link?
Yeah, should I? It's...
Oh, yeah, if you can just put it in the chat. Because I'm doing the handling the Twitter feed, so I'll link it up. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. Should I get to go?
You're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Sweet.
Knock yourself out.
This is called Bruises. Ouch, Case laughed, with a large, honest smile on her face. She was standing directly beside the sink, and after our last round, it was decided that she would do the dishes. There was a large bruise forming on her arm, which she made sure to show me. It was dark, purple, and perfectly round. It was the best bruise I had seen in days, since Case had placed one under my eye when we were deciding who should take out the trash. Best out of three? Case asked, with a seriousness I knew could only mean she wasn't ready to give up. I lifted up my hands and placed them near my head. Case took up her usual stance, which was loose, awkward, but incredibly powerful. Her right fist was stronger than mine. When we began to date, we arm wrestled before we upgraded to boxing, and although I only knew her for a few weeks, I wasn't the slightest bit surprised when Case defeated me in a matter of seconds. Fight, Case yelled, landing an unexpected jab straight into my chest. I flew back, and my hand fell straight onto her unwashed stove top, turning my fingers black with soot. I opened my hand and flamboyantly slapped my palm straight against her cheek. I was taunting her, which was something I quickly regretted when her fist smacked straight against my nose. It sent my body flying back again, and I knew I needed to retaliate. I hated doing dishes. There was nothing I hated more in this world than dishes. And we fought over other chores such as grocery shopping or doing the laundry or vacuuming. I didn't really care if I lost. I was simply enjoying the fights, with all the bruises, dislocated fingers, and hairline fractured wrists that went along with it. But the dishes were different. Ow, Case yelled, after I landed a large punch straight onto the bruise that covered her arm. I smiled while she reveled in pain, and she smiled back. This was our love language, and Case confirmed it when she told me that violence was the secret, sixth love language. Case said violence was only for couples who truly loved each other, but when she punched me straight on the right cheek, forcing her hands to ache in pain as she missed the flesh and punched straight bone, I couldn't help but smile as I fell back onto the pan rack that lived above our kitchen island. Stalemate, I yelled, noticing Case's knuckles were beginning to swell, and I was leaking blood onto the cutting board. Case lifted her hit from her hand and smiled back at me. We both took a moment to assess our wounds before we locked eyes and knew that this was all either of us had ever hoped for out of life. Who should clean it up? Case asked, noticing the blood was staining the cutting board red. I took a moment to compose myself, and despite my head becoming slightly wobbly, I was lost in the thought of how eternally grateful I was that we had stumbled upon one another, and how neither one of us flinched when one day we ran out of toilet paper, and what began as a simple game of rock, paper, scissors turned into a boxing match. Put 'em up, I said, with a cheesy accent. Case smiled and lifted her fist, before she snuck a kiss on my cheek and sneakily landed a punch straight into my ribs before I could even say, fight. Now I'm just going to read a short poem called Love. This one is not on the web. Love is when you don't flush the toilet and I pee on top of your pee. And when the smell floats into my nostrils, it reminds me of all we have created together. And it makes me never want to flush the toilet ever again. Thanks a bunch for having me.
Alex, those were phenomenal. I mean, of course, I love the first one because we published the first one, even though I think Rudy handled the acceptance on that one. But these are both really wonderfully like perverse little portraits of intimacy. And what's I think remarkable about them is that at no point do they become like purely ironic or satirical or purely kind of like transgressive or subversive. They stay really sweet and really intimate and really tender throughout, even as like the subject matter gets twisted, right? And I don't know, I think that's really unique, and I really appreciate what you've done here. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to publish that first piece as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. And it was awesome to have you come and read. Hopefully you'll come back sometime.
Yeah, would love to. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Alex. Up next is Adam.
Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. And I'll put
Okay.
a doc in the chat here. So this is from a book of yours that's being published soon, or at least it's going to go up for purchase soon, right?
Yeah, it's going to be available for purchase on Monday. And
Awesome.
I'll just say, for the sake of a little more understanding and context, you know, every story or most stories have an arc, and this is a piece that's from the ascent of that arc, I suppose. The protagonist is named Goddard. He's a man in his 60s who has I would say, obsession with the wife of his youngest son, and he's secretly sneaking over to like spy on them from their backyard at night, unbeknownst to his wife. And in this chapter, his hopes are dashed because there's a baseball game flooding the woods behind their house, so he can't embark upon his usual campaign. All right. The next week, I was in the dentist's chair. I had complained enough of my molar for Heather to make an appointment. There was a root canal followed by a woozy Goddard paying an insurance copay in the stale blue vestibule, where a friendly office helper was put out of her wits by the bearish punk drunk fellow wearing my face. Out into the wild yonder of the bustling uptown street, thus did I trod with inflamed jaw, suffering the dwindling effects of a local anesthetic. The drink from the water fountain was uncommonly formidable. The apricot from the market, a pulpy, alien sweetness as I bit into it with an awkward, half-functioning mandible. But these are details. The car ride home was, but whatever. When I arrived at my door and roof, Heather was in the garden and back attending to weeds. I was able to sneak upstairs to our bedroom and rub some of Bella's hair across my face that I had stolen from a hairbrush during a break-in on my second visit to Walters when I had discovered an empty home that had implicitly begged for burglary. Backup keys held by the parents, no forced entry. I tucked the banded lock into an old shaw green dressing case I kept in my nightstand and met my lovely wife as she hunched over the soil on her knees by the fence. Everything went fine, dear. Yes, thank you. I am indeed a bit tired. I believe I'll turn into the den with the book. Yes, the one with subsidized time. She always asked after what I was reading, the good woman. It was in that den, my Bantam Bower, a prized name, that I had begun to journal on the ripening topic of Isabel. There were some pages of scribble, some illustrations, the substance of which would probably amount to a prima facie case for indefinite civil commitment if placed in the appropriate hands at the district attorney's office. Mr. Anderson, Assistant DA, I doff my hat to you, sir. I was to meet Boris at the Something or Other Museum, one of several in our fair city, at 3 p.m. to take in the Titian exhibit then on display. I say something or other because while I know well the name, something or other best reflects my ambivalence for the arts, and moreover, my overall disdain for that name-dropping dinner table companion, a plum with his wine glass who will tell you all of the discreet facts on Manet's boyhood without your ever asking, who will mention a word like facet cubism in casual passing, though in all sincerity I cannot fault such men. Come to think of it, I had, like the careful reincarnation of a gin-soaked judge penitent, played the game in my own little way, letting on at choice moments in life my modest acumen concerning art and books when the exigency of a moment ripened, ever careful to avoid the airs of a pedant. I believe it was Carlos Casagemas' act of blowing his brains out at La Hippodrome Cafe that helped inspire the Blue Period, but I am not sure, when indeed I was certain. Though I never did attain that lofty learned person's panache for faking Stendhal syndrome, and I was constantly in a struggle to utter more than one or two sentences on the topics of painting and film, the opera and the stage. I overused the word aesthetic to the point of vulgarity, and every motion picture I took in was judged by a criticism that included either a good or bad cinematography. Did you like the film, Goddard? Oh, why, yes, exceedingly. Such genuine fracture. I really had nothing else to say. The depths of my literary criticism were the worst. I don't care for all those ellipses and exclamations in Rollvog. And yet I was obliged, perforce, to take the occasional trip to a gallery or to take up a seat at the theater at the request of well-to-do friends who, because I had said a thing or two about Duchamp 12 years ago at their New Year party, considered me a most unrivaled aesthete. If only they could have seen the true colors of this fraudulent devotee, but I never did let on, striped horse that I was. It doesn't matter anyway, any of it. As my friend Huntington has pointed out, ours is a century of canons in which the discursive spirit of genuine art is too often deemed redundant, and where abstract expressionism is in its glory on the barren walls of office lobbies. Perhaps you like it so, reader. Perhaps you're taken by that sham print of the Eiffel Tower above your office restroom, or by that faux canvas of the Italian terrace and wine glass made up of artificial brushstrokes. Salute in bold type. Or perhaps you've kept all these years that little frame with the quote from Wilde that once adorned your dorm room wall. I ask, have you? Do not forget that life is an incredible undertaking of acquiring as much knowledge as possible and then dying with it. We met, Boris and I, at a coffee shop adjoining the museum, where we acquainted each other with the goings-on of our aged lives. We were old friends, versed in varying idiosyncratic episodes of our former working days, retired now and lost in late life wilderness. A Titian exhibit today, a crossword puzzle tomorrow morning to keep the mind sharp, an exploding heart on the next day mayhap. And yet it was relieving to my old brain to share in the commiseration, to listen to Boris's fears, to shake myself from the increasingly arresting solipsism that was forcing me into a cocoon unknown. We had by all appearances a healthy, comforting little chat. Decorated with espresso sips and folded hands, a biscotti fashionably partook of, two old men making the scene with their balding pates and ashen faces. It was with high spirits that we passed through the towering fluted shafts and grand stretched capitals with the Corinthian columns bounding the facade of the pictorial building. $25, but all right, I will fain pay it. I really must see those pregnant-like bellies in Diana and Callisto. And so we entered, our eyes wandering over the treasury of white space and timeless frames, my growing itch for the nonce forgotten. It was perhaps only my natural paranoia, but it seemed those gallery docents, those sport coat air-raid sentinels who look daggers and will fleece an eggshell for any word against the pre-Raphaelite brotherhood. Yes, those type of men and women. It was they, I thought, who suspected me of some lapse or offense, which had the consequence of causing me to stand further back from the paintings, lest I face the booming humiliation of a whispered reprimand for getting too close. But really, St. Andrew's hands appeared so tender from a distance, and I had to close in on that golden panel. And I had forgotten that I had that little pencil, that little dulled pencil in my hand. My mistake, pray sir, it was my mistake, really. Making our way, the old innocent gray hairs through Byzantine artifacts, a processional cross, a pendant brooch, a copper empress, we were shortly before the majestic house of the sun amidst small stars. It was there, on the top floor, in the splendidly elegant vividness of soft fluorescence that we discovered, a second time for Boris, that Venetian wonder who, centuries beyond his passing, would force the exchange of American dollars in order to simply stand before his venerable strokes. I cannot with sincerity say that I was awestruck, though I was overcome with an impressive sense that I was in the presence of an abounding genius, capacity, like the guttural marvel one develops instinctively in the presence of some great orator showing total and utter ownership for his subject matter. And it was not long, of course, before I was standing before Diana and Actaeon. I'd seen it before, in a coffee table book probably, and had passed over it without pause while waiting for my ophthalmologist, Jean. I think his name is Jean. I was verily Actaeon-like as I gazed on nature's naked loveliness midst others of less note. Through my half-closed modish eyes, all the overlooked details came crashing upon me. The collared dog that from a distance appears beheaded, the background woman wielding an implement, and that face, oh that face, crying tears from its stone tomb into the shallow pond, smiling dismally into the eons, unceasingly dormant through 2 layers of time, spotlighting the pure evanescence of natural beauty and the durability of despair, the shepherding of intangible maxims in a tangible medium. I am in my own vehicle. The velvet voice on Minnesota Public Radio is laboring over the issue of the youth vote as I back out of the driveway and coast into first, second, third, and fourth gears, all automated down the fair street and into the setting sun. I am alone, the most comfortable state of man. The date with Boris is now a lost part of an ancient afternoon, and I cannot even recall leaving the museum or what awkward parting of words must have taken place between us through no fault but my own. The Titian exhibit was a kind of chronic blasé affair that I consider now like so many singular routines, say, as when a bearded lady dies between towns. My mind is flush with yearning, and real-life compulsions with gratifying properties are coercing my nerves. I am returning to my sweet forested opera box in the suburbs. The rising white-capped sea foaming in my path would have no chance of survival against me. The young man behind the counter at the rental company extended a friendly smile. Economy, he asks. I answer in the affirmative by nodding my head and reaching for my wallet. My information is on file, and it is with relative ease that I drive off in the protective anonymity of the black, unassuming Ford. I stop at a foul gas station, the kind with the bathroom accessible by key in the back of the building, and change into my black athletic costume before continuing on my exciting drive. But I do not make it to the car without hazard, for when I open the metal bathroom door, there is a plain-looking middle-aged woman holding the hand of a boy 5 or 6. His other hand clutches a corn dog bleeding mustard. She looks with horror at the old body all in black carrying a duffel bag and finding his egress into the night air from the confines of a dingy, dimly lit unisex backlot bunker. There is a pregnant pause that falls upon our shoulders, she and I, a mutual distrust, and an almost voiced understanding impresses the air. She cannot leave the boy without the room while she relieves herself, cannot allow him to stay for one moment in harm's way against the brick exterior unaccompanied in the presence of, and I mean it, in the presence of me, for I look the part of deviant, blushing to the roots of my hair and grimacing profoundly. He is pulled into the contaminated room and, as I imagine it, forced to stand with his face to the door until his elder is finished. I make for the Ford with haste, hurl the bag housing my clothes and loafers into the passenger seat and speed off, fearful that the woman will capture my plates before I can flee from the scene of a contemplated crime. The velvet voice on the radio does nothing to soothe me. Indeed, with the mounting paranoia, rearview mirror clear, side mirrors clear, rearview again, no visible Crown Vic or Interceptor headlights. The soft glaze of the buttery female inflection offers an absurd contrast to my panic-stricken maneuvers as I accelerate through the yellow lights, darting my eyes to and fro for the slightest indicia of a squad car at the lively intersections. I tailgate a white-haired Bob driving a Buick at 5 under and contemplate smashing her over the curb. Every car is tailing me, and I made to divert my route down ad hoc streets to determine if certain vehicles are following me with a purpose other than that they share a common general destination. A taupe Taurus takes 5 turns with me over the course of 3 minutes and keeps its distance so as not to arouse suspicion in me. In me, my face grows hot. The backs of my hands are sweating, and for an instant I am an elephant apart from the herd, vicious, red-toothed, and prepared for a high-speed chase that, for all I care, will end the lives of strangers. I fly down a freeway entrance ramp and am followed still. Within moments, I top out at 115 and lose sight of my pursuer. Miles away, I exit and wait in a Dairy Queen parking lot. There are parents and children eating cones near feet from hideous me. After 10 minutes, I putter out of the lot, a silent beast loosed upon the world. I see a shocked man in the parking lot shaking his fist, his passion stirred, angered at my Ford for nearly clipping his son with the bumper. In a matter of turns and reverse steps, I am back on course. The panic subsides, the speed limit slows to 30, and I'm humming along in the freshly detailed plastic and cloth that composes the plain chariot, conveying my bulging itch to the only place it can feed. It is nightfall when I reach the outskirts of Walter's sprawling city. Before I park, I glide smoothly in front of their townhome on my 4 rubbers, noticing that in the windowed apse above the door, a faint hue of gold is telling of activity in the posterior rooms. They are home. I find an opening out of the winding neighborhood and arrive in little time at the park where, to my unimaginable horror, a baseball game is underway and where the parking lot is half full of cars. The entrance to my favorite woods is spotlighted to an almost daylight quality beneath the tall stadium lights that rain down destruction on my plans. A scoreboard signals the second inning of 7. And although my cherished pair are fluttering and the blood flowing faithfully on account of the Cialis, my weekend pill, I can only scream in the silent dome of the creeping car. I pass an hour over a strawberry shake and a destitute Burger King, cringing at the thing that is me, completely aware of the sidelong glances and askance eyes that cling to my person from the chatty worker bees in hats behind the counters. I am an obvious pariah, a dreaded bête noire. I have suddenly and unexpectedly infringed upon their Whopper world, breached the hackneyed plastic booths with my black rump and vile facade. I am unwanted. I leave. Bella, think of me. Could it have been anything but love? Affluent, well-to-do Goddard, highly educated, a member of the intelligentsia, hack wine critic, with my second house in the hills and Borms, sucking down a cheap, creamy, hand-spun whipped malt and head-to-toe coal-colored fruit of the loom, my wife wondering what the devil I meant by errands, keys to a rented car in my cotton pocket, waiting merely for an end to an unknown game in an unknown city so that I could pry by secret ploy into the intimate curtilage surrounding your household. Could it be anything but the most classic case of ardent fondness, my dove, for me to go to such lengths, to take such risks, to quarrel with the decent side of my soul, for I did have one, do still, all for the single project of gratifying myself during those daring, high stakes minutes when I surveilled your candid existence? You, mother of pearl, you know it was so. I languish in that period now. I pine for its return. That beginning period when I would hunt you in the night and bathe myself in the delicious, unalloyed happiness reaped from the shrewd and calculated hunt, beyond the known world and swathed in secrecy. But it was not so on that night. It was so on others, dearest, but not on that night, but not on the night occupying the pages directly, supra. From his briefs, I can tell my lawyer likes that word, supra. Hang the man. No. On that night, that terrible night when my Cialis-driven equipage of hormonal belligerence was stymied by the ball game, I was not to delight in the fruits of my laborious schemes. I had drifted away from the Burger King and sped directly to the dark and empty park where the excitement flooded over my intrepid skeleton. I exited the car and descended down my evil. But what is evil? Path, over twig and broken stone. The little lights of the distant townhomes twinkled through the limbs of trees and abundant greenery. And as the breadth of physical space closed between this writer and the addicting brunette bullseye that the reader knows as my Izzy, so billowed like smoke to my brain a rarefying carnal craving. It should not shock the reader to learn that those high on secondary psychopathy, factor 2 and facets 3 and 4 of the psychopathy checklist revised, illustrate an increase in impulsivity as it relates to acting and thinking and lack of future planning. And it should not shock the reader that I, too aware from my training and experience with these multifaceted constructs, would prove a most divine exception to the general rule and conduct myself according to the strictest deliberation and prudence. None of that hell and death cut off my limbs and see if I care kind of bravado boasted of by your typical home invader. Not me, the vigilant, modest rat accoutred in soft, silent black. It was with that deliberation and prudence that, painful though the discovery was, stayed my hand from operating on the sliding glass door of their home when I encountered it in a blackout state. Not a single window showing even a speck of light. I remained at the fringes of natural growth, careful to not leave a trace of my shoes in the hemmed grass of Walter's dude lawn, or cause a commotion where a landscape bush might rustle in the night. I waited. After waiting, I waited more. Curse the earth. There would be no window into their lives that evening. I masturbated into a small divot on the trunk of a tree. The dithering departure, the late night gas stop wardrobe transition, the return of the rental car to a quiet back lot, the 4 scotches in a wood paneled bar while I ignored the vibrating cell phone, its screen flashing home. They are but a sad little narrative in the history of a sad little man. At 1 trillion a.m., I entered my house by the back door, as guilty as a Belgian king, and tiptoed to the quiet chamber housing the thing that called itself my soulmate. Though the room was dark, I could feel, like a textured air, my wife's eyes upon me. I pulled back the covers and settled below the sheets. Honey, I said, but she gave neither answer nor stir. I picked up on a gentle snore emitted from her throat. Such is this life to not be found out. How I marveled at the synchronicity, the roots of coincidence between that pervading silence and those century-old words in the roundabout papers that imbued my worries with calm. How men have to work, to talk, to smile, to go to bed, to try and sleep with the dread of being found out on their consciences. What a wonderful and beautiful provision of nature it has been that, for the most part, for I'm caught infrequently at something, our womankind are not endowed with the faculty of finding us out. They don't doubt, probe, and weigh, and take our measures, and verify odometers, and scan telephone bills, and hack accounts, and keep watch from windows, and open our letters. It's the male lot. C'est la vie.
Adam, I am so glad you are finally publishing this. You've read excerpts from it at Misery Loves Company before, and I think, unless you've changed it since then, we actually published an excerpt from it, I don't know, maybe even a couple of years ago, or at least over a year ago now on Misery Tourism, right?
Yeah, there was a excerpt published about a year ago, I would say. Yeah, I think it was August of 21 or so. Yep.
I am so in love with the voice that you've created for this novel. It's so like lavish and complex, and it's it's sinister, but it's never cartoonishly sinister, right? It's so every oh my God, so many of the sentences in this piece just leave me in awe of like because there's so much like complexity in their construction. There's so much like psychological depth there, and they're so consistently funny. I mean, I hate to make the comparison to Nabokov because it's one of my favorite comparisons, but I can't think of a comparison more apt here, really, because it's that same kind of like simultaneous like incredible density and incredible lightness to the prose, you know, which is really fucking hard to do. That sense of like it's dense in that it's obviously intricately and complexly constructed, but it's light in the terms of you never like really feel weighed down by the prose, right? The prose never becomes like impenetrable. It never becomes a slog. It never slows down. It keeps moving, and it remains kind of like you know, comic. And it's so good. It's so fucking well written. I can't wait to actually read the whole goddamn thing. Although I had the previous iteration of it. I don't know if I sent that back to Jesse or if I still have it, but I have the like copy that you
Yeah.
self-published a while back, and I haven't read it all the way through yet. So this might be my opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, and now that you said all those nice things, I'd be happy to send you one anyways. So thanks for saying all that. And thanks for letting me read.
Oh, thank you for reading, Adam. Derek's up next.
Can you just give me like a little thumbs up if you can hear me? I'm not gonna be able to hear. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Excellent. So my name is Derek May, and this is from my novel Characters. I'm going to start on page 108. Number 108 is a spiritual number. It's why I picked it. She unplugged the program. She worked quickly, assuredly. She took it apart, knowing its parts technically and intimately. She was careful, packed it up, left a note for Sam. I am taking to Winston to edit. I am bringing the program. I will return in 2 days. The program will not be harmed. Sam arrived in the early afternoon hours carrying a large iced coffee and an unmarked white 3-ring binder. Imagine her mouth agape. Imagine her hurried shuffling of papers, her frenzied pace as she surveyed the room, rapid heart rate. Could she? Would she? Gasp. She'd skipped her mentor's funeral, not out of spite. She hated him for what he'd done to himself, what he'd let the program do to him. Yes, certainly, but her absence was born of something else, and it was hardly an absence at all. She sat in the parking lot of the Wilkinson Funeral Home smoking cigarettes in her silver Honda Accord with the windows rolled all the way up to more completely arrest herself in the sweet fumes. She watched the mourners come and go, talking of Dawson, GF, and the Southern Cavernous Gulf in the Comparative Literature Department of Temple University, and she wept. I am on drugs. My son is in the back seat. The drugs are prescribed. I am driving. I am hurtling towards the city, Winston. I still abuse them. Occasionally, I have a head filled with dangerous ideas and violence, impulses. I am riding this current to the mouth of this river, silt in my eyes. Father, have I made you proud? I'll not be pawing around this nostalgic basement scratch of my voice anymore. It is here. I am driving with my knees. The highway screams at me, clenched. Thank God I drive west. Running from dusk, prolonging the lost hours. The original father would come home from work at dusk, and I was afraid. When I drank, and I drank, I began my descent at dusk. The better to bury this and other violations besides. not all of them invented. My skin crawls as the day droops. The sun sets the table for the white-knuckled night. It was dusk. It was dusk when they came for me. It was dusk when they took me away. It was dusk when my father's car pulled into the driveway. It was dusk when they stuck the notes to my head. Picking glue out for 30 years, my scalp has been molested. It was dusk when I looked into the rearview mirror, saw my reflection, saw the field. Thomas says I use the word fallow too much in farmhand, but it was fallow. The corn stalks wouldn't rise until next year. I'm supposed to know another word for it. It was dusk when the suicidal ideation came for me and the fear that my grandmother gifted me more than her red hair. I still have visions. It was dusk. Some do this to get closer to God, if God is self, if God is within, if the Eastern religions are correct. It was dusk when we burned leaves in oil barrels, smell of smoke and sulfur. A kitten wandered into the house. Papaw took it downstairs to the basement, snapped its neck in front of me, told me it was to save her from the dogs. Who, my Lord, will save me from the dogs? It was dusk. I miss blacking the fuck out to avoid the crawl of night. I can't. I have a son. The truth is buried in a single-story apartment complex in Opelika, Alabama. Everyone you'll ever meet has got a story about Opelika, Alabama. In mine, we drink Dayquil. The television set in the front room isn't working, and the wood paneling surrounding you creaks. Everywhere is angels. This is the long version. We could go there tonight, you and I, and dig it up. We'd be filthy. A new character has entered the chat. A new old character, in fact. TB Sheets storming the gates. Will proceed cautiously. Much has changed since you've been away. We met in the college town at punk houses. We drank at Boxcar with Linda. I was 17 and had just left home. We lived together after my first day at the Whitaker. He was a comforting presence. We played Super Tecmo Bowl and stayed up drinking one century into the next. I had within me an unfinished story, an unrequited love. She invited me to visit her in Opelika, Alabama. We lived on Wilson Street, a detail not to miss. TB Sheets and I will drive from North Carolina to Opelika, Alabama, and drink cough syrup to shatter the nerves. We will chronicle the adventure. A couple of travel writers, year 2000, Palace Brothers on the stereo. We arrived and nothing was how it should have been. I didn't love her. I was 17. I didn't know what love or anything else meant. A few years earlier, after the therapist had sprayed my writing out on the glass table in front of my father, in front of my mother, and purchased my silence with shame, I would talk late into the school nights with her, and she'd ask that I read her poetry. I read Howl again and again. I read America over and over. I read A Supermarket in California continuously on loop. I only owned one poetry book. Eventually, I read my own. She listened. I named that love. Naming things is not easy. I'm supposed to be editing Wilson Street, that sad puddle of an eruption which cost me so much, but it's time. TB, it's time. Her and her roommate, apartment complex, single story, edge of town, black light, Bob Marley poster on wall, crawling out of my skin, begging for the moments to stop adding up, for the wave to let up and let me go. She points him out, all of us outside now. She whispered, that's the guy who raped me. I charge, I miss. TB Sheets, illuminated by the street light and eternal righteousness of a glorious God, punches him in the face. TB Sheets, who never misses. TB Sheets, who is made of stone and iron. TB Sheets, a brick of a man, a full-size real man. We run. I grow old. I wash dishes. I asked the line cook to marry me. We moved to New Hampshire. I was at Leon's listening to jazz music outside, wearing a Joy Division t-shirt and blazer. I'm moving around in time because I move around in time. We'll always end up exactly where we were meant to go. Trust the autorial intent to God. I had children. TB Sheets was my best friend during many of those years. We quit drinking. We watched Carolina basketball games and boxing. We loved each other, I think. I can't even fucking read this twice to edit it. God damn it, I'm sorry. The plague came. I thought I would die. I thought I can't do this without a current to ride. I wrote Wilson Street. I sent it to Manny. Manny said yes. Manny said, hey, GF, thanks for the offering. I really love this. The way it crescendos at the end bowled me over. One of the more captivating short stories I've recently received. Accepted. I'd love to feature this Sunday, August 23rd. Would you mind sending a headshot for the contributors page and indicating where to link your name? A personal website or social media account will do. Are you on Twitter? I ask because I introduced these on there and could tag you. Excited to have you on. Yours, Manuel. On Sunday, August 23rd, the first piece of writing I'd shared with the world void in over 20 years, TV Sheets calls. We lived on Wilson Street. You had no right. You used real names. You were a monster. Make something up. Invent. This is a violation. And that was it. Our friendship was over. I sent Manny an email and asked him to change the names of some characters. It's hard naming things. Manny is good and was happy to help. I felt like the saddest puddle of cum. I had written, I wrote, I'd published, I publish. TV Sheets would never speak to me again. I erased 2 decades of friendship and love. They found Cassie this morning. The program was intact, unharmed. A note taped to the back. If found, please call Dr. Rob Dawson, Department of Comparative Literature, Temple University. The authorities called the number. Sam answered. She's driving now to retrieve the program and identify Cassie's body, or what's left of it. Her car was found mangled and tangled with her body, steel and skin forever embalmed in a fallow field off the side of a long, pointless country road. She was 23 years old and would stay that way. Every letter is a character. A letter is a character. Will time be kind to these characters? I know some of them well. I met some in passing. I looked some up. I used some too many times.
Holy fuck, Derek. Holy fuck. That was fucking phenomenal. That was some next level fucking shit there. I want to say I don't know where to start. I mean, well, first of all, like between this and what Adam just shared, here are 2 books that I've been hoping would see the light of day, that are going to see the light of day. In some ways, like this is like the coming to fruition of like the entire like Misery Loves Company project, right? To see characters come out, and to see Adam's book now coming out as well. But man, that what you just read, I mean, first of all, like to do it on the street the way you did it, like there was no better possible way to do it. That was like transporting in every sense of the word, right? Like that was just fucking supremely powerful, and your delivery was unbelievable. But the text itself, oh my God, man. The way it's dislocated in time and space, the way it like drags you just frantically and desperately through time and space without ever like having the reader or the listener feel like completely lost or disoriented. It's just like this sense of like hurtling forward, and just like some of your best writing, just this incredible like collage of moments of like tenderness and trauma transposed and intercut, and it's beautiful shit, man. I'm rambling. It's beautiful fucking shit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you for letting me read. I really appreciate it.
Derek, you did first person reading. It was awesome. I could see the book in his hand. Like it was like, fuck, dude, it's like a gun. It's a fucking man. That was awesome.
Yes, Karate the Band. Karate the Band is one of my favorite bands. I think Damon said something about that on that. Yes, Karate the Band. I love them so much. All right, I'm going to get into an elevator now.
Okay, thank you, Derek. That was incredible. So, Gigi is up next. Boy, tonight
Yeah, just give me a
already
second.
feels like some greatest hits shit. I have a really good feeling about tonight so far. Okay, Gigi, sorry, it's all yours.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right.
Sound good.
This will just be one quick poem. I'll read it and then I'll be done. So this is called, in a perfect world, a personality test would be done by another person who knows you. But if there is someone who knew you that well, you wouldn't care about some dumb personality test. I like to get stoned and think about Hitler. I used to get high and watch Hitler documentaries, but you know what they say, you watch 100 or 200 Hitler documentaries and you've seen them all. Some people say they would use a time machine to kill Hitler. I use one to make sure the leftovers in the fridge don't go bad. Then I reversed the purchase of some crab chips that tasted nothing like crab. I think the people who go back to kill Hitler would probably yell something heroic. Something like, "Take this, you son of a bitch," or maybe, "For the Jews." Either would be a fine thing to yell while killing Hitler. But what if it's the 1920s and you're sitting next to another student in art school in Austria, and some person with odd clothes steps through a magic portal and bellows, "For the Jews," and kills your classmate and celebrates, then disappears? I don't know. I feel like that might send a person down an odd path. That's all I have.
Sorry, GG. Holy shit, GG. That. I'm sorry, I need to compose myself here. That's so fucking funny, so good. And I love the ending. This is like a cascading series of really wonderful punchlines, and they each build up intensity. And you could not possibly have guessed at the beginning of the poem where it was going to end up. But when you arrive at the destination, it kind of makes a sort of perverse, perfect logical sense, in addition to just being fucking hilarious. It's really good, Gigi. It's phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that.
I agree that it's a cascade of well-timed punchlines, but it's actually, I think, a resonance cascade of well-timed punchlines. The image of somebody stepping through a portal and just shouting "For the Jews" in Hitler's art class, like, fuck, man, that's really good. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Davian says sounds like some Rick and Morty fan fiction. Thank you, Davian. I want to see Davian and Gigi fight. Okay, thank you so much, Gigi. Grapes is up next. Or Michelle.
Hey. So I also wanted to only read one thing, but I think I have two. So actually, I'm just gonna read one. The title is "The Way He Smacked My Ass." I wouldn't have it any other way. It makes the blood rush, you know? Does he love me? The Spanx felt like it.
I love the "does he love me" in that poem. You think you know where that poem is going, and then it turns at that moment. As usual, like, your poems are so rich and concise and feel so tightly packed with emotion. But I do love, and where it arrives, like at the center of that poem, is, I don't know, it's ingenious. It's really well paced. Thank you, Michelle. So I want to check really quickly, did John Casey ever show up? I don't want to leave him, since he did sign up first, I don't want to make him wait to the end but I don't think he's here, no?
Guys, I'm actually new here, so
Hey, Ray.
hi, what's up? So yeah, can you give me a brief overlay of what you do here?
Yeah, this
Like,
is it's a weekly reading series. People come and they share their poetry, they share their short stories, they share various things that they've written. That's basically it.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. So I don't think John's here, so we're going to move on to David. David Hay. Hey, David.
Hi, man. All right, sorry, give me one sec.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just put the link in the chat.
Thank you. So this is a poem / monologue type thing, I guess, called Do You Remember? Do you remember when your first steps on English soil after the wall fell and no one believed in communism anymore? Did you feel like a madman with your Whitman beard and tongue of prophecy that transformed words into bridges that led nowhere? Did you hear people laughing at the end of history when Nirvana screamed of age? Do you remember when Trotsky, with his prostitute suits, guided your ideals through office corridors, past the soulless pragmatists to your desk that leaked meaning as the hours built up their excuses? Father, enough of politics. Trotsky died of an ice prick to the brain, and the world is melting under a sky of acid. Politicians are just managers now. It matters, Father, I know. Each breath is political. But these are big people on a little stage. Speak to me now as your son, not a comrade after drunk meetings of nostalgia and emptiness. Tell me something human, of some small, no minuscule thing that would deaden historians' erections. Give me images exact as William Carlos William and his plums in ice boxes, but with Neruda's subterranean voice beating in the deep heart of geography. But I know that you won't tell. Even mother gave up asking, and she, well, a woman is a vessel of burdens, and a man comes only once. She has lived alone with you for 32 years, and you know nothing of her roses, her underwater volcanoes, or the ashes she served you on IKEA plates before watching her crime shows and thinking nothing of dreams. She only has our dog, bought after my breakdown when I tried to cut out the man in me, and the rapeseed fields fruitless now in her abstract loneliness. Her autumn years passing remorseless without your reflection. Do you remember, Father, the dry crunch of childhood years? The time you first masturbated and thought you knew God and walked barefoot through your mother's garden, knowing instinctively that the nightingale's song was your own? Do you remember when you entered God's house and heard his voice in your silent skull, and you knew hell was real, and that hope lived in the hand you could never touch? Did you worry that every good, ill, or perverted thought was broadcast in heaven's eye? Did you make deals with the dead to protect your soul in the case you sold it to the devil? An accident of words that led to your damnation? Did you feel in the cold glow of the nightlight that you knew the devil as well as God? Did your parents know the damage this was caused? Or even now, with your books of atheism built around you like a nest, do you read scriptures, those iron words carved with God's tears and wrath? Why you still look from behind the mirror when all your friends know he's dead, and so do you, when you have the energy to think? Father, remember when I was a child and we played wolves and howled at mother, pretending to piss on each door frame, or when drunk after some political meeting that led nowhere, you wrote notes on toilet paper and passed them under the door to me. Do you remember what they said? I don't. I lost them in my teenage years, those daily massacres of toothpaste and spots, and oh God, why did you make me with this face and these nipples as big as clementines? But I never felt as close to you as I did then through a closed door, passing messages like spies. Eternity creaks on its rusty hinges, and stars are only dead light. Lines under your eyes mark every decade, and your veins are rivers overflowing their fleshy banks. Why is there an emptiness that nothing fills? You gave me my blood and my thinning hair, my needless libido, and every mental illness, undiagnosed, just like yours. So you should know, stop blubbering, Father. It is just the end. We made death after all. Yeats said it, so we know it must be true. Old man, the moss of time is covering my crevices and crawling up my nostrils. It's the itch I can't scratch. But my teenage tears mean nothing to the sky that swallows all blemishes to become blue. I hope I remember all or nothing of you. Each is complete, each screams Genesis. And I already worship you as a little God who knew nothing but created all the same. Drama does no one no good, Father. I only wanted to see you as you did, before you're tired irrevocably to time and not me. Stop dribbling. Keep some dignity at least. Answer me, Father, I will flood silence with needless questions. Fine. Do you remember why doves become fires in children's eyes? Why the English summer knows only defeat? Why I drowned my blooming youth in the bath after I couldn't stop thinking about thinking and you saved me? Talk to me. Talk to me as a man who knows each day is a battle with the sun that can never be won. Each siren is a testament to man's failure. Talk to me as a man who knows the sleeping cat contains all poetry. The sparrow can become a symbol for all suffering. The green tongue of spring brings only rain, and that a woman is a cage of glances, as we fucked them and thought only of our summers, and that love is not entombed in flesh, but in the universal that contains every face. Oh God, Father, sermons do no good. And I won't go all Emerson on you again. The nurses will make your bed soon, don't worry. But even now I can't stop, Father, even in this country that did nothing but make me want to be famous. Do you remember your youth punctured like a football in the housing estates that never suited their names? Oh, Father, I will leave when my lungs are windless plastic bags, when there is no oxygen for thought, and the crimes of every day, the mundane, unreported crimes that the news gives no transcendence, have been brought up to Olympus. Look at her, Father, and see her now with her dyed hair and false nails. Tell her love was too much for you, and it's not her fault. But the morning never once surprised you, and the worms felt only grief. Father, you have been a fool. Trotsky is dead, and you never held hot lilacs to your chest, or fucked your wife who had formed the stars. You never once looked up to see the heart of every human reflected, only separation and hollow space, only endless meetings and wire cages you built to trap birds as a boy. Do you know that even onions sprout flowers? Or that on my 10th birthday, sitting on the toilet, I knew I could kill a man if I wanted, if I rolled the right number, if I played the right hand. But you don't. How could you? Don't let this be an ending. As both of us silent as humiliated boys, no, as lifeless as a dead child's old room kept exact, never altering. Let us remove our hats as day replaces night, and with whiskey or brandy, something smelling of the dirt of grief, of manly failure, and talk of history of ours, of yours, of mine, and speak secret things that would make our daughters blush and our mothers weep. Let us know one another as men know the river, like men who know death like a parent. Let us speak of our sunken wonders and flick the crust from each wound and speak, Father, for death we both know is the end of life. But prisons are man-made, and our life means nothing to God, but everything to me, with my hand as broken as a woman's. Thank you very much.
Oh my God, David, that was beautiful. I love how this piece is constructed. I love how it like opens with the failure of politics, and you think it's going to be a political piece, and then it becomes something so much more intimate, so much more personal than that, and you really cast off like the facade of politics and like the facade of political significance and meaning, and instead like do what literature does and really dig into human life and dig into a family and the psychology of like shared like pathos and pain between a father and a son. Oh, this is a gorgeously written piece, David. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And yeah, I think this was your first time reading, so I hope you will come back at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, David. And Gianluca's up next.
Wow. Okay. Oh, snap. All right. So I don't know. Should I, gosh. Okay. So should I chop down the wall of text, or should I read the whole wall of text, or should I get the short story, which is significantly shorter? I don't know. Gosh.
Boy, it's the burden of choice.
How
Oh,
many
God.
choices are there?
You know what? Okay. You know what? I think I will read the short story today and leave the wall of text for another time.
Okay.
I think the wall of text
cool.
suits. Yeah. Okay.
I
will
won't
let-
argue with that. That sounds good to me.
I was gonna say you could randomize it, but I mean,
Yeah. I'll. Okay. All right. I'll. Yes. Hold on a sec. Okay. So unless you guys want to read like a wall of text on your own time, that old link is not applicable. All right. Okay. Sorry. Apologies for the.
No, it's good. It's good.
Apologies for the. Okay. All right. This should work. Okay.
It does work. Yes.
Great. Let's go. All right. It's called The Scientist, and it's accepted by Rudy. So, yeah. The scientist was attempting to occupy his time. The sky outside was gray, but he didn't mind that. because he had his specimens to look at. It was a beautiful thing to see the square ribs with the vertices jutting out, little pins protruding from the ideal of the shape, the repeated, perfectly spaced patterns. It was a great distraction from the gray sky, the lack of friends, and his derogatory view of his own self. The twisting hexagons and overcrowded civilizations, pervertedly gasping at the infinitesimally small women. The ugly desert outside knew no curves and could only format itself in ramps, sharp edges, and flat surfaces. It was as if there was a plane for every square piece that made up the desert, and the sand, displaced, traveled past the edge and into a theoretical space. He realized at some point that this was all a silly distraction. He knew that this was all junk food. He wasn't learning anything new. He was looking at his specimens almost as background noise to his own lack of thought. He knew that he no longer loved his specimens and that they had nothing to offer him. He considered leaving his laboratory. Nobody had checked in on him for such a long time, either out of concern for his well-being or to verify he was still doing his work. He stepped outside. Everybody was still doing their work without him. His name, being on one of the lockers and referenced in the schedules, felt almost patronizing, like they were not acknowledging his absence for his own benefit, as if he was missing a, Jesus Christ, he was a mental deficient that couldn't do his job. No, he simply did not do his job. That was the sum of it all. Nobody took notice of him. Nobody heeded his presence. They were the actual workers. He was simply an object. He was carved out from time, an object the cuboids separated from their time stream, a lump, a something. He couldn't deny these charges, and that made him angry. He decided that he couldn't handle the passive hatred and the reminder of his own difference from the workers. He wasn't a serious guy. He was Mickey Mouse, a goofy bastard, so he left. The scientist witnessed several individuals fade into nothing around him. He did not think anything of it. It began to rain, but that did not faze him. He continued on to the beach, which was just as cumbersome as the surrounding desert. There were several corpses strewn about. Some of them were brought down by gravity into theoretical space. He noticed the surfer. The surfer had not washed in many days, preferring natural odors for both him and his wife. The only water that had touched his skin was seawater, spray from the waves, and the result of him being knocked over. He was not taken seriously by the world. He was one of those spiritual nut jobs. He worshipped the sun and considered himself apart from the world. He convinced himself of this even when he dined at KFC. His wife was mute at the KFC, head tilted toward the ground. The surfer was ambivalent toward his wife, viewing her as an accessory and birthing machine. No, he was not actively abusive. No, he did not hit her, but that didn't matter. The surfer took her in when she was pregnant with a child of rape. As soon as the child was 12, she ran away. Her name was Easter, and the date of her departure was New Year's Eve. The surfer did not care about this. Apparently, he was a beast, but he had none of the influence required to be a biblical beast. No one but his wife accepted his mark. Instead, he was apart from human morals and society. But as a human, he would always benefit from the labor of those who accepted the common tenets that upheld society. Both were amoral, but the surfer was clearly benefiting from an unfair arrangement. When you're in the office, it's like everyone else is in fast motion, like in the movies where they want to emphasize the presence of a character, like he's out of place. But while I am out of place, I am no character. My passions are prestige television and data wrangling. My politics are moderate to non-existent. My aesthetic views are not informed by the classical greats or a great big urinal. I see no value in any of them. I am speaking. I am giving a speech and still the rain comes down on me. I know that makes me silly. I should react. I should yelp due to the cold. But if I did, it would be a performance for no one. Just you slimy caveman faggot bastard. How strange is it when even eclipses or a beautiful blue cannot embody anything anymore? When even the amazing beauty of this world, deemed not enough by those invested in an afterlife, can it turn into merely, wow, holy shit, merely holy fuck, okay, merely a distraction or a something or other. I say this not to argue that everything is pointless. I am a lucky man, for I have not had to spit any rain out of my mouth. I simply accept the foreign wetness of my lips. The moon can be blue, but the common pink is a far greater beauty. For the sun will always be there. Why concern oneself with pearls and diamonds when the embrace of warmth will always exist? When Anat herself comes in the guise of a prostitute, I find that people like myself are often fond of overwrought metaphors and symbolism. A lot of scientists, on some level, fancy themselves artists. I scoff at them, but also myself. We are far too machine-like to be a something, but I disdain the artists who look down on me and lead princely lives. An artist should work as a gun store cashier. I married Annette on a Tuesday, and on the next Wednesday, she had disappeared like a warm day or a name, no note or anything. I would consider myself an incel. Yes, I would consider myself an incel. Oi, caveman, do you admire stoicism? Then you should admire me a ton, for I am very stoic. Look at me, any other man would be shivering. Both of us are kings among peasants. The squires with their umbrellas, black umbrellas that once upon a time deflected bombs, silly man, silly bastard, boom, 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 parum, pum, pum, tiri, la, la, la. The surfer held nothing but disdain for the modern bastard. The real world is what justifies heaven. You know it, you're a smart man, I suppose. Love is when you consider yourself no better than the chairs or the tables. Love even requires smiling at your enemy. A loving man is a pathetic pacifist one, and yet no man or woman can resist aspiring to him, least of all me. Sometimes I consider myself a noir protagonist, the dame in the hut who held an unwanted child. I delivered the child. So many conservatives on the TV, they spread lies about race and IQ. They passively allow the people that tell women to leave their husbands and abort children. The woman shall one day be my princess, but there needs to be a ritual. I will cut a goat's throat, and I will show her the insides of the neck. I will prize out the teeth and show her their perfection. I will even note the evidence of God's love inherent in the anus, the great anus that degenerate Bataille derided as solar. There needs to be violence in this bastard world. The individual whose letters are locked in the tetragrammaton had intercourse with some earth, had intercourse with some earth and said toodaloo, cheery pip, that's all folks. And we cry for our dear mother and father. The retard Mindlander was more correct than I'd like to admit. The world cries out for death and abortion. That is why the Platonic form will remain only an ideal. Dear God, you mentioned the rain. The rain is a mere annoyance sent by Satan with a false justification of feeding crops. Bastard shitting rain for low-key bastard fuck. Rain is a dog ripe for marriage. Rain is a shade of blue or a pain in the knee, or perhaps a flower with too much to carry. My wife is deeply miserable. I consider it my duty to allow her to sort it out on her own. The gap between men and women is simply too wide. Plus, modern women have the hypergamy and shit. They're too modernity disease-riddled, I'm sure. If I were to earnestly try, I would simply mess them up. Men cannot understand women, for a woman is a different species. Ah, but you seem effeminate. A man who announces his dominance by declaring his newness, his integration with the modern world, he said. Ah, what is it like to be a caveman, to survive on only what one can catch? Pretty damn miserable. The moment you get tetanus or a broken knee, you're done. Stupid bastard, little shit. The anus can never be solar. I shall not facilitate the theories of those who glorify insanity and weakness. Deleuze and his ilk are the territory of the ivory tower intellectual and should be shot, responded the scientist. You're somebody else's dream. We have similar enemies. Come sleep in my hut. You will be visited by a dream concocted by the chthonic world located in the underside of the brain. Talk a lot of shit. Hypergamy, the gap between men and women. You're not a different species. The gap isn't that wide. It's made by the world, not nature. I do not recognize the world outside nature, so I can only defer to what I see. Your ignorance says nothing regarding truth, but the scientists have discovered the non-existence of such a thing. But now you rely on our discoveries. You are not outside man's creation. You never will be. Come, say no more. Wanker, the scientist obliged. Sleep on the sand in between my bed and the wife's. Very well. The scientist did so without complaint. The literal brain, he questioned. Of course. Which section, which specific part? The underside, no more explanation necessary. The rest was concocted by people paid too much money to swirl beakers around. Like me? Yes, like you, the scientist chuckled. Wanker. All right. Ite, I'm off to bed. I hope wifey isn't too depressed out in the rain. The surfer said nothing. The scientist was not visited by a dream. This disappointed him. He felt as if he had been deprived of a spiritual experience that would have given him a great purpose. All the windows had disappeared from the concrete block buildings. He looked over at the muscle-bound surfer. Con artist, shithead, reactionary, fuckhead, he thought to himself. He smiled to himself. Why had he ever thought that this bastard was interesting? The surfer woke up as if in response to these thoughts. Hey, he said, cuckold boy, science fag, little bitch, you stink. You stink more than me. The size of your hut is impressive. Where did you get the wood? Home Depot. Where's the wife? I don't know. I don't keep track of your concubines. Haha, shithead science. Let's do some surfing first. I like to surf the waves. The thing about you is that you care about what faggy shitheads think of your status as a human being. What matters is muscles, not whether your peer-reviewed paper got enough medals. Papers usually don't get medals. I knew that, cuckface. What's big is why, but the why is small like a grain of sand. Why that the scientists seek is small because the big is in the small. The sun on you, the wife, the sea, the hut constructed from Home Depot wood. You get it? Why is the important? Oh, sorry. Why is there? Holy shit. Why is there important for there to be? Sorry, no. Why is it? Why is it important for there to be a why? Why is it important for there to be a why? The doing is enough. I thought fascists were more fans of being than becoming. Ah, yeah, well, fuck those guys. I like surfing. I like being racist. That's it. There doesn't need to be anything more complicated. I may not be a fleshed out character, but nobody's watching. There's only you and me. No need to perform complexity for others. Then no, there is only hatred, neglecting your wife, and Sigma surfing. The scientist then thought for a second. Your wife probably drowned herself, fuckhead. And for the record, you probably shouldn't use the F word like that. The gay one about gays. I'm gonna take your fucking surfboard and I will never give it back. You will always be alone. And me, I will always be winning. The scientist then rushed out, grabbed the surfboard and began to paddle out into the sea. The surfer then knelt down into a lotus position. He knew the scientist was right. He did a silent prayer that absolved him of any responsibility. He then did a couple stretches. No matter how much he tried to convince himself of his sadness, his face remained unstained with tears. This depressed him truly. He had become so distant to what he once thought he was. He looked out of the window, cut into the side of the hut. It was always cold as a bastard in the hut. Dark sand that looked like gravel. He felt like screaming. He felt the inability to change. His past self, over whom he had no control, held him in place. His past self's choices closed neural pathways that formed the basis of his current identity. Still no tears. He wanted to punch his ducts. The surfer was indeed a fascist, but the scientist began to wonder if he was indeed correct, that the search for the answers to the big things was in fact small, just a big smallness, an adolescent dream. And indeed, he was surprisingly good at surfing, yanking that board and running with the cold-ass wet sand touching his feet, finally feeling as if his skin had been stripped, and the only thing that remained was his sight, the water baptizing its own name or something. He was surfing despite the bastard. The surfer presented it as a be-all and end-all, cure for suicide. He would enjoy the surf and then kill himself just to prove the bastard wrong. Maybe the people back in the office would feel sorry for him, but that would be the most painful of all. People saying that they sympathized with his plight, the tears broadcasted on television, the wet-faced co-workers blubbering that they never knew him enough to save him, and only if they had been kinder. I think it's if only they had been kinder. Sorry, Jesus Christ, I am. Fuck. Jesus Christ, God. Okay. And if only they had been kinder, reducing his existence to a preschool message. No, the solution was not to be kind. No, the solution was to leave him alone. The surfer screamed, with his legs apart, a strong stance. He then, continuing to emit a ritualistic noise, ran into the sea. Bastard had no tears. Maybe the lie was how you knew it was real. But deep down, the scientist just thought the surfer wasn't capable of such a thing. Stupid fucker ran into the sea and died like a bitch after much struggling and gasping and a couple genuine tears. Ha ha ha. He was surfing to spite a corpse, and he was pretty damn good at it. The sun made everything beautiful, and Nat was at the beach. The sun is a woman, the scientist cried from the top of the wave. When back on land, the scientist stripped naked and began to run toward the desert city. He felt the wind on his entire body and existed as a thing within the world. He began to cry like a bitch. Ha ha ha. Several people noticed him, but no one did anything. Surfing was not a cure for suicide. Neither was McDonald's or playing CSGO. But he heard the McRib was back. So he ran into the McDonald's and asked for the rare McRib sandwich. His balls rested very comfortably on the plastic seat. He wondered why no one else did this. The sun's brightening cleared the grayness of the sky. Everyone but the scientist complained that the glare was too strong. But for the scientist, such things were irrelevant. When at home, he was content to simply stare at the ceiling. But before long, tears started to come down his face. It wasn't because he felt pity for the surfer, nor was it because he cared about the opinions of the sun-shunning demos. He looked at the webpage on his computer, a planned platformer video game about a young girl exploring the landscape of her dreams. He didn't even like video games. He likely wouldn't care if it came out, and there was a high possibility that it would have been a mediocre product. There was something innocent about the main heroine. She had a fishing hook that allowed her to glide across levels. She was fully integrated into her fishing activities. A man by the name of Baal walked across a bridge and collapsed into a sitting position against its walls. The atmosphere cleared, and the stars could be seen. Star then knocked into one, and this caused the stars to bounce off of one another. And all the humans gazed up at this display. The scientist was busy, shivering and looking down at the floor. He was cold because he was naked. He was thinking about the monarchical civilizations that existed on the skins of his specimens. He wondered if they were okay with his eye looking down on them. He never saw the wife. She could have been a fantasy, and he would have been none the wiser. She wasn't. Perhaps when out of view, the kingdoms died too. The internet was a graveyard, so much beautiful stuff. And corpses were always more beautiful than the living, for corpses had kingdoms on them. The scientist wanted to get so thin he could see his ribcage, so he decided to fast for a couple days. He came across Baal's body. He carried it to the lab. Everybody was shocked when they inspected him. He had special cells. I don't know if he had special cells. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. He had special cells. Okay, just an incomplete sentence that proved the genetic heritability of an artistic disposition. Scientists didn't want to hear it. It was a fantasy of those who wanted a genetic answer to everything. It was worrying to see his colleagues sound so odd. He wept. Jesus never wasted his time on tears, said one of his co-workers. I'm not Jesus, you stupid bastard, the scientist said in return. The scientist then assembled a suicide machine from objects found in Home Depot, but upon completion, he found he could only stare at the mechanical angel. You did good, said Baal to Titus. I suppose it's time to call it quits, said Titus. The world dances for us. It is very beautiful. No need to redeem it, no need to say anything. We fade from newness and production and all that crap. Life sucks too much for that. What the world gives us doesn't redeem, it allows us to interpret. It leads us in paranoid chases. It fucks us. So the scientist was forever alone, a thin bastard who never quite fit in. Reminds me of someone. Someday children will claw up from the ground like zombies and shout no more. Someday I'll wake up and the world will leave me alone. Yes, that's it. He never saw anybody again. If he can be okay with that, I can be. You're kind of mean. No more than you. No sympathy for fascists, for sure. The moon is a psychopath. It will kill us. Yes, but realistic fiction is a bore. Let the moon do its talk. The outside shines with bright light that contains no information. Titus and Baal shake hands. The moon steadily approaches them. They both leave the house. Everyone in the world had disappeared. Baal did a mock wolf howl. Titus simply stared. The moon had it out for them specifically. Titus went to the bookstore. Is this time for a time for reading? Asked Baal. It's a time for nothing, replied Titus. Sometimes I think you have fantasies of being a little girl. Weirdo. Fucking weirdo. I suppress things that harm me. Well, no one is around. You are. But if I was gone, you'd be too scared. That's the bugger of it. If someone can see you, you can't be your ugly self. But if no one sees you, you curl up in the corner. It'd take a true stoic like the scientist to be an ugly individual. The two came across the corpse of a homeless man. They knelt down to inspect it. The corpse came to life and stabbed Baal through the neck. Titus ran. That's right, run, you stupid bastard. Run, the homeless man screamed. The homeless ex-corpse then proceeded to kiss the moon. I love you, good night, he said.
Gianluca, you know, I never put my finger on it before, but man, dude, you're a fucking contemporary Voltaire, is what you are, motherfucker. I love the way, because like your work simultaneously works as a kind of like philosophical exploration of these topics, but also as a really sharp and nasty satire of the philosophical exploration of these topics, right? I love how in this piece, especially, like it's constantly balanced on a knife's edge between like intellectual conversation and just fucking name calling. And it like so perfectly captures like the spirit of the discourse, right? To have this kind of high-minded intellectual like exploration of ideas immediately degrade into the crassest, nastiest insult contest imaginable. And I mean, this is just so, it's funny throughout, it's thought-provoking throughout, it's just really fucking good. It's really good as usual. Thank you, man.
I would like to say something about this too.
I mean, you can.
So it made me less gay than I am now. Wait till I tell the story.
I don't know. Do you consider that a victory, Gianluca? It made him less gay than
You finally found conversion literature.
Hey, man, hey, if you're happy where you are, that's good.
Can I tell my poem? I just made it up in my head now, and I know how to plan this out.
Go.
All right. What you think? No or go? I don't know.
Go.
I can't. I can't.
I can't tell if that was no or go either. You've got a poem. Are you saying you have a poem?
Yes.
Okay, read it right now. I assume it's not a long one. If this is an epic poem, if this is some Homer shit, I'm gonna be pissed. But okay, read your poem.
And I'll tell you the poem. So the title is called "A Normal Day in Clash Royale," Arena 15. Now.
Hell yeah. So
I start up the game. I whip out my E-Giant. Then he pulls out a freeze and is Skarmy out of his ass. Next.
Yeah.
I decide to freeze the Skarmy. Then he mirrors and clones it. Now I'm screwed. Then I whip out a log, put it in his mouth, and choked him while shoving
This sounds gay.
This is the whole point. Next, after that, I place down my E-Barbs, Elite Barbarians with Rage. Then he whips out the Mega Knight.
What?
Proceeds to
This is also sounding gay.
Just wait, it gets straighter on and on. Then I whip out my Skarmy and Elite. Oh my god, what's it called? Wall breakers. That's right. My Skarmy and wall breakers, and I clone both of them. And then the wall breakers decide to become terrorists and blow up the tower. Then the Skarmy, and then I hit rage. Hit the rage with it. Blast down the King Tower with a bunch of skeletons.
I don't feel like I don't feel qualified to praise this piece.
Do you know
Honestly,
do your parents know you're in a Zoom call with a sexual predator?
damn.
I do want to
Honestly,
hear what Rudy has to say though, because I feel like this is clearly this piece is clearly rooted in gaming, and Rudy is a resident gaming expert. So Rudy,
I have no idea what game it's about. I'm assuming
it's whatever. You know what? Forget it. You guys go on.
I'm assuming it's about that that Clash of Clans or some dog shit. I don't know, but
Yeah, no, it wasn't gonna be Clash of Clans. It was gonna be Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. Okay, well, either way, I don't know what
Yeah.
the fuck the kids play today. So it all sounds the same to me. But no, I'm gonna be 100% serious. You should absolutely keep writing game poems because we need more of those. So absolutely, and I'm being 100% serious. I'm not pulling your leg because
Here's the
that,
funny thing. I
I'm-
didn't even write it. I just pulled whatever was out of my head.
Hell
to do
yeah,
that,
dog.
yeah, that's a
that's
performance.
fucking writing, man.
performance.
That's
No,
That's
writing.
it.
hold on. Not the other head. My brain, not the other head.
Yeah,
Okay,
That-
thinking, yeah.
both of those things are writing, frankly. But
I write
anyway,
exclusively
no,
with
but-
my penis.
I
And
want to
for
say
a
something.
minute, I was actually going in here to try to Zoom troll you guys. But I'm like, nah, this is a poem thing. I'm not gonna be that mean.
Thank you for your restraint.
thank you for your mercy. Okay, we're gonna move
But I
on.
want to say something about
Oh,
Gianluca's before
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
did make the acceptance to this one.
Yeah.
So I really love how you take these characters and embody like these philosophical arguments or concepts with things that lets you visualize them. I love the visualization of these characters because like you could feel this because like I was picturing Kilgore from fucking Apocalypse Now whenever the surfer dude was talking. I don't know if that was intentional or I don't know that it just felt like that, you know, but you can feel this guy because of the concepts you're talking about and the way, you know, you have the wordplay of like the surfing, like the Sigma surfing, you know, got the dual incel and science meaning there. I just love like the way you mash up concepts in a way that's compelling all the time, and you constantly hit that in all your pieces. You hit it like 100% of the time, and then this one is no difference. I also really love, and I think I said this in the email, the perfect portrait of every indie Steam game ever that you somehow managed to fit into this, like that. The one like you even have like the the gimmick weapon, like the grappling hook. It's instead of a grappling hook, it's a fishing thing. But it's that was so good. I love this piece, Jim.
Yeah, I do want to say and it's just a little aside in the piece, right? But it hit me the same way, Rudy. Like that is like every like Steam game with mostly positive reviews, right? Anyway, thank you, Gianluca. Thank you, Nick.
Her.
Nick,
Say the whole name, William.
huh?
Say the whole name.
Okay, we got Nick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we got to move on though, kid. We got to move on, buddy. So, Gabe, you would be next, but Gabe, I want to ask you, and this is totally up to you. We've got two other readers. Do you mind if I put you last, just because I know what you're going to read, and I'm not sure if it's going to be something that people are going to want to follow?
Oh, that's yeah, whatever. Yeah,
Okay.
I will happily go last. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Gabe. In that case, Tyler's up next, and then Rudy.
Okie doke. So I'm going to be reading something that I published on Bear Creek Gazette a few weeks ago. Let me link that up. Okay, links in the chat. And let's get started. It's called Life Cycle. Think stinks. It's coming from the bottom of the pipe where it bends. Slight blockage is formed in just the right place for a growing knot of food, scum, and soap residue to collect, snowballing larger and larger. It's been a problem for a while. And it's not as if the sink doesn't get cleaned regularly, or somewhat regularly at least. Still, no one addresses the blockage. It stinks worse and worse, but no one in the family feels like taking the time to deal with it. It's not big enough to block the sink all the way. Water still drains okay. What if it stinks? Sinks stink sometimes. Best anyone will ever do is splash a bit of bleach down there and hope for the best. The smell is hard to describe. Properly defined, it's actually a melange of many horrible smells, finally mixed and titrated like the subtle notes of a perfume. The main body of the smell is sharp and sweet fungal odor, but there are also strong notes of earthy bacterial tang, which evoke feces or sewage. There's the nutty, salty waft of animal fat entwined with a stale, bloodless whiff of plant fat. There's a bilious, vomity bitterness near the top of the smell, buoyed up from underneath by a sour dairy smell that sits heavily in the nose. Surrounding this bouquet, ringing it all around like a decorative wreath, is something unnatural, a sharp, artificial chemical smell. Probably all that bleach that keeps getting poured down there, or some broken down byproduct thereof. The sink stench is actually remarkable in its fashion. No one who's been near it can say they've smelled anything quite like it. The source of this smell, the knot of the blockage in the U-bend, ages, ripens, and matures, bulges and forms a round sac. Then now it's restricting the water flow pretty well. But the sink always drains down eventually. The family adapts. In the course of weeks, something unusual happens. Secretly, unknown to the family, a faint heartbeat forms inside the bend. The heartbeat grows stronger. The sac gets even bigger, all but blocking the entire pipe. It strains against the walls of the pipe. Stress cracks form in the PVC like long, jagged spider veins. Beads of water run out of the cracks, moisten the particle board below, cause it to wrinkle and soften. The crisis comes to a head in the middle of the day, with no one in the house. The pipe, strained to its limit, pulses with muscular contraction. Dislodges a little mushroom man. He explodes out of the sink drain, glistening with effluvia, flying upwards in a graceful arc and plopping wetly on the countertop. He scrambles to his feet and takes in his surroundings, his beady little marble eyes darting around the kitchen. Born schemer. The little mushroom man skitters across the kitchen counter, each tiny footprint leaving the thin laminate beneath black with dirt and soft with unwholesome moisture. He stops and sits in a corner to think, and when he rises, the backsplash has grown a large black print in the shape of his ass. He hugs the wall with sticky fingers and drags himself slowly upwards, and the drywall turns brown where he scoots his belly across it. The sink's draining just fine afterwards, and the smell dissipates, but now the family has bigger problems. Filth and decay follow the little mushroom man everywhere he goes, as he cavorts wildly late at night, as he parks himself and lazes during the day. And though he manages to stay well out of sight, the rotted evidence of his travels is everywhere. Bluish discoloration on the tile, thick black stripes of scrunch all along the baseboards, spattered multicolor watermarks in the backsplash, crumbs and dust on all the shelves, and new smells, evil smells. Nothing ever seems to air out anymore. Burned dust in the toaster, scorched butter in a too-hot pan, ripe onions on the cutting board. Everything sticks around and grows, pressing inward, each smell strengthening the other. The mother and the father fret over the mess in the kitchen. They've not been having the best time together recently, and the kitchen's neglected state is adding an exciting new dimension to their spats. Neither one can identify any area where they've been slacking off and cleaning, but the evidence is right there in front of them. The passive aggressions they funnel through the kitchen are more or less lost on the older kid, who isn't quite old enough yet to consciously pick up on such things, but he is old enough to detect that the other kids' kitchens don't look this dirty. He invites friends over less and less. The younger kid doesn't notice at all. He tear-asses happily through the kitchen on his trots around the house, having no frame of reference for what kitchens are supposed to look and smell like. As he grows stronger, the little mushroom man's fingers grow lithe and powerful enough to part the seal on the fridge door and pry the door slightly ajar. He slips inside the fridge like a thief in the night and sets the torch to everything in it. The clear glass partition shelves he slides his palms across, turning them cloudy and opaque with unaccountable scum. The butter he frosts with a dusting of green mold. The milk he unscrews, breathes inside. the fetid exhalation transmuting into chunky little yellow curdles. The little mushroom man picks up the fruit and regards each piece with the air of a huntsman looking over a purebred whelp he's thinking of adding to his kennel, turning them over in his hands, shriveling them with the acrid caress of his palms till they're stickily wet and ready to burst with slime. He reclines on the cheese like a chase long, and it turns rock hard beneath his body, a dried out slab. It splits here and there, and a white floury streaks form in the creases. Half-open can of peas he turns into nauseous yellow mush. A half-used bag of flour tortillas he opens, sniffs heartily, sucking out the air, desiccating the tortillas into tasteless cardboard shards. The cucumber needs only a gentle squeeze of his fingers before it wrinkles and begins to smell like wet leaves. He squeezes harder, and foul-smelling water begins beating all along the sides like sweat. He hops into a bag of lettuce and makes merry like a kid in a sandbox. The bag slowly fills up with brown slime. The mother opens the fridge soon afterwards, and the smell hits her like a truck. The kitchen was one thing, but how could the fridge have gotten so bad? The father looks over her shoulder, mow waste, and remove shelf, hide its contents into the trash, and scrub them in hot soapy water. He's grumpy, and the mother can't blame him. She resolves to shop smarter, plan meals, so seal up leftovers more assiduously, whatever it takes. Struggling against the little mushroom man is going to leave the mother anxious and demoralized over everything to do with the fridge. She will resort more and more to fast food and boxed dinners, fretting what it's doing to the kid's health, but unable to overcome the quavering panic that rushes right up her throat whenever she even thinks of opening that big white door. The father tries to pick up the slack, but he's unused to daily cooking, and he privately resents the mother for dumping this on him. Meanwhile, the fridge is getting grosser and grosser inside. It's getting so bad that when the mother does rouse herself to cook a real meal, she doesn't bother putting leftovers in the fridge, but it leaves the whole pot or pan in the dead stove burner to eat later. And the little mushroom man delightedly frolics in it as a field of beautiful wildflowers. And without fail, meets the morning sun as a smelly, caked-on morass that the mother struggles to scrape into the garbage can. When the junk-sated kids plop down into their beds at night, the mushroom man, emboldened and stretching his legs as he grows, runs freely around their bedroom. He runs across the mattresses, and his footfall breeds dust and mites that make the kids wheeze and cough in their sleep. His touch brings forth hidden odors trapped deep inside the mattress: stains, miasmas, ghosts of pre-potty training accidents, spilled soup and hot cocoa from bedridden sick days, summoned out of the past. He runs his finger along the mattress's seams and dots them with the bloody pinpricks of fleas and the black ink dots of bed bugs. Underneath the bed, he dances a little pirouette, and the hardwood grows a carpet of dust, and the dust sprouts an Edenic jungle populated by gray dust bunnies, tufted chunks of cat hair, wispy clouds of old down from old exploded comforters and pillowcases. The little mushroom man curiously lifts up a corner of peeling wallpaper, and the moisture of his breath penetrates all the way upwards. Fungal blooms and earthy scents explode beneath the wallpaper like a time-lapse film of a desert in flower after a hard rain. Each night, when he finally tires of his diversions, the little mushroom man collapses in a laundry hamper, and the clothes spot with damp, stinky molds that additional washings will only spread and fortify. Soon, each piece of clothing they own is streaked with a fuchsia and blue and green and black of exotic fungi. The children's teachers take note of the state of their clothes. Teachers adopt a crinkled brow look of benign concern and ask the kids whether they're getting enough to eat, whether the water is on for them to drink and wash. The kids say yes. Two teachers discuss the possibility that they've been scared or embarrassed into silence. The subject never happens to come up again. There are so many kids after all. Cat is attracted to the dank space under the bed and often sleeps there no matter how dusty it gets. The little mushroom man curls up to the cat's warm body and takes a nap. When the cat wakes up, she has fungus on her skin. She tears at it with her claws and her tongue until it's rubbed pink and raw. The broken, moist skin gets infected, begins suppurating. An ulcer develops on the cat's lip where some of the fungus was transferred. The ulcer swells and gets painful, and the cat eats less because her mouth hurts. The worried mother takes the slimming cat to the vet. An antibacterial swab is prescribed for the ulcer. The swab kills the fungus on the lip, but it travels down her GI tract and swells it nearly shut. The mother brings the cat to the vet, and the vet prescribes steroids. Married mother has to force the cat's mouth open and squirt syringes of strong-smelling medicine down the furious cat's throat. And the cat, though weak from undernourishment, still manages to tear the mother's hands and forearms to ribbons with her back claws. The steroid suppresses the cat's appetite further, even as her GI tract returns to normal. Where was I? The fungus spreads into her liver and intestines. The cat stops eating altogether. The kids ask if the cat's going to die. The mother makes visit after visit to the vet where the rapidly deteriorating cat is subject to blood work and imaging. The vet is flummoxed. He eventually convinces the mother to let him put a feeding tube in. Now the mother needs to pick up specially formulated cat food into a slurry and squirt it into the cat's feeding tube 4 times a day. She has never been able to abide canned cat food. She can count the number of times in her life she's fed it to her cats on one hand. The smell makes her gag, but now she peels open each can and mixes it with tepid water and swishes it around and really lets that smell spread around. And as if the kitchen didn't stink bad enough before, now she seals the uneaten portion of the can with a plastic top that never quite keeps the fishy sour smell from getting to the rest of the fridge. And gets it back out at feeding time and microwaves it. Not too much, because you don't want hot food going straight into the stomach, just enough that the smell collects in the microwave and blasts the entire kitchen upon opening. Still, the cat fails to thrive. She becomes weaker, bonier, tottering around the house on unsteady legs, looking for all her former perch spots she can't jump up to anymore. Bile leaks out of the spout of the feeding tube and drenches the bandage that's holding the feeding tube in place. She finds a pile of clothes in the closet, dirty clothes that fell out of the hamper, and spews drool and urine and bile. The mother thinks she's going to die there, but against all odds, the cat picks herself back up and dies back underneath the kid's bed among the dust bunnies. She's only there for a short time. Thanks to the noisome influence of the little mushroom man, her body bloats up fast with putrefaction gases. When the mother finds her corpse, she tries gently to slide it out from underneath, but the cat's mouth and asshole burst with gases, and some of the cat's liquefied intestine slides out the back end. The mother puked on the floor of her kid's bedroom, screams, cries, screams. By this time, the mushroom man's made it to the bathroom. No need to go into everything he did in there. This time, there are no feints in the direction of stepping up the cleaning routine in the bathroom. They mentally write it off instead and use it as little as they can. Quick shits, hurried showers spaced further and further between. It seems clear that the house is nearing the point where it's more trouble than it's worth to keep. The father's in denial about this. The mother isn't, but the thought of finding a new house in this market, on their income, and going through the trouble to pack everything up and move seems impossible. The mother can't even hold the idea in her head without having a panic attack. She decides instead to enter a profound depressive episode. Takes days off of work. She sits in bed and plays on her phone. She doesn't make any texts, doesn't read any text she gets, doesn't touch any social media. Mostly she plays puzzle games and reads old Wikipedia pages of different shipwrecks and industrial accidents. She buys a carton of cigarettes at the store and begins smoking for the first time in a few years. The master bedroom is choked with smoke at all hours. The kids are left almost entirely to their own devices. They happily stomp around the house. They raid the pantry for dry cereal to munch on for dinner. They take bags of cheese balls and popcorn out to the couch while they park themselves in front of the TV. Junk food crumbs nestle in the leather couch's crinkles. Their unwashed bodies make prints in the cushions that grow shiny with skin oil. The mushroom man, burrowed deep inside the couch, spreads out his fingers underneath the cushions. His spores suffuse the couch with a musty smell, the smell of poverty and indolence. The mother doesn't notice the couch's new smell because she's too busy smelling up her own bed. The funk of her body conquers the thin top sheet and the slightly thicker mattress pad and penetrates into the mattress itself. The ashes from her chain-smoked cigarettes aerosolize themselves and burrow into the fabric of her pillow. The wallpaper around her bed acquires a greasy yellowish-brown hue, human exhalation, smoke, skin oil, and desperation. And the little mushroom man scales up the walls during the mother's frequent cat naps, and his voracious tongue licks the smeared stain on the wall, driving the filth deeper into the drywall and spreading the stain further and further like a trowel until its embracing arms corral the entire room. Never having caught the mushroom man at it, when the mother looks at the walls one day and sees the whole room painted in a dead-looking ill color, she naturally assumes it's her own state of mind at work. The mother stays in bed and stays and stays and stays. Her skin starts sticking to the bedspread. Her washed out skin becomes less and less distinguishable from the filth darkened bedspread. Her period comes and she doesn't bother to put a tampon in, just lets the blood run through her pajama pants and stain the sheets. No one's seen the father in a minute. The kids run in and out of the bedroom. The snacks run out, and they raid the mother's purse and sock drawer and change jar for money for snacks at the gas station. The mother stares at them in silence while they do it. While the kids are at the gas station, the little mushroom man runs roughshod over the entire house. Giggling, he pries his fingers into the spaces between the floorboards. They rot inside and attain the consistency of paper mache. The little mushroom man forces his disgusting little toes in between the baseboard and the wall. A little space fills up with dust and debris and cobwebs and bits of old food and the corpses of roaches and mice. He wrinkles and bubbles wallpaper with a slap of his hands. He latches onto a hanging edge and pulls down with his whole body weight, causing it all to come away from the wall in a big ragged strip, leaving the sticky, sad residue and bits of torn away white paper behind. While the mother vegetates in bed, he forces a window shutter open, clambers up onto the roof, and fills the gutters and the downspout with scum and black muck and all manner of wetland ecosystem. Tree seeds germinate in the sloppy humus of the gutters, start to spill their shoots over the edge. The branches inch underneath shingles and send them scattering to the ground. The little mushroom man tears strips off siding. He splits open undisposed bags of garbage and scatters them on the lawn. The kids spend less and less time in the house. No food, no money. They can't watch much on TV anymore. It's on the fritz. The internet bill hasn't been paid, or perhaps the dampness in the house is simply rusted and eaten through the packed metal fibers of the cable line. One day, the kids simply don't come home. The power and water shut off. With less and less internal activity, the entropy inside the house picks up pace. Garbage and dirt pile up on the outside of the house in mounds. Soon, the back door can only be found with difficulty. The front door starts to disappear next. Mail carrier has to shove piles of brown clods and wrinkled paper garbage out of the way with her foot to put mail in the box, which is rapidly filling in with dirt. Portions of roof rot fall in and expose the interior of the house to sunlight, and the mushroom man coaxes in birds and rodents with a stumpy, beckoning finger. Wildlife roosts in the mother's bedroom. She observes but doesn't react. She is now fully integrated into the bed. Her rumpled yellowish face and barely mobile eyes regard the disintegrating bedroom from the narrow opening in her comforter pile. She hasn't eaten anything, and she doesn't know how long, but somehow the wrappers and crumbs keep multiplying around her bed. The house looks less and less like a human structure and more like a natural feature of the landscape. The mushroom man scales exposed beams. He oozes across bare plywood. A thick brown crust like a scab grows over everything. Dirt collects on the sloping piles around the house, and grass and other plants begin to grow all the way up to the windows. The little mushroom man throws open the windows and guides the undergrowth inside, shows it pools of nutritious humus and pools of stagnant water. Plants and fungi start growing on the floors and furniture. Ever more complex organisms begin to nest inside the house. Ants, bees, snakes, field mice, robins, owls, groundhogs, deer. They lick the microbe-rich beads of dew on the walls, munch the fungus growing in a line along the door frames where the little mushroom man has dragged his belly across. They burrow in and nest in the bed whose clothes have long since disintegrated into a pile of shredded gray rags, attracted to the small signature of body heat where the mother still hibernates somewhere far beneath. People in the neighborhood began to develop a blind spot to the rotting house. They walk right by it as if it was always there, slowly making themselves forget it wasn't. The children have by now wandered off like stray cats, gone begging for food at the back door stoops of other houses, eventually finding new homes willing to take them in. The father, meanwhile, who some time ago slipped away quietly from the house because he just couldn't do it anymore, has settled into a new phase of his life, moved in with a new woman, a fun woman, a together woman. His day-to-day life is satisfying. His mind is gradually clearing. He's only periodically nagged by how he left things, and sometimes he feels that he should really call and see how everything is. But he gets a huge anxiety rush, which always circles back around to inertial guilt about not having called in so long. The longer this cycle continues, the harder it is to break. The father has accepted that it may never do so. What can one do, really? As his final opus, the little mushroom man skitters down the basement steps, walks from one end of the dark, musty room to the other, surveys the damp, unfinished concrete floors, and forces those powerful little fingers of his into the cracks in the foundation. The fingers lengthen, slither through the chinks in the edifice, bifurcate, branch, concrete and brickwork begin to crumble like dry cookies. Huge masses of soil push inward, the walls bow and slant. In slow motion, the house implodes. The first story rushes in to fill the vacuum underneath that the weakening structure can no longer sustain. The second story and the last intact stretches of roof are swallowed up by the brown tide and disappear. The hungry earth gobbles up every human artifact it can reach. The mound smooths. The ground levels out. Deep underneath the topsoil, the mushroom man, buried and pressed in on all sides by tons of earth and rubble, finally quiets his frantic movements for good and stretches out all his limbs into the dark, loamy soil. His toes lengthen to wrap around the shivering form of the mother, encrusted in several layers of filth and partially mummified, and sucks out the tiny remaining core of animal heat from her body as her consciousness finally goes dark. His hungry roots suck her corpse to a withered husk, to a bone, to a stick, until could just be another piece of ancient dead garbage among a whole pit of it, and anchors himself on this craggy fossil as he extends his fingers above and lets them snake upward through the soil until they reach the surface, sunlight, and erupt into 1,000 fruiting bodies, heavy with spores, thick and fleshy with life.
Holy shit, Tyler. Now, Tyler, I've talked before about how you have an incredible knack for like disgusting details. And and it seems you've taken that to heart, because this is like your epic. This is like just an incredible piece of like escalating gross, disgusting details. And none of it feels like cheap or exploitative or false is the wonderful thing. This is like a grand fairy tale composed entirely of the grossest shit you could possibly imagine, and it's beautiful. It's really remarkably well constructed and well written, even as like I was shuddering at every other line. It's so good, Tyler. And
Thank you.
I'm a little envious that Stu got his grubby little hands on this one before I did.
Yeah, wow, that, like I said, it's like a magnum opus of filth, like the Mushroom Man guy, like that, like just like a lot of pieces that are about like stasis or like entropy and shit, like kind of tend to reduce people to the level of animals, whereas this elevates fungus to the level of people, where the fungus man is like cultivating the entropy. He's cultivating the filth and the rot and stuff like that, and it's just really powerful imagery. Like I said before to you, your smell-o-vision thing is really awesome. Is you can literally, the first part of it, you can smell it, like it's really like vividly described. I love the, like I said, the smell-o-vision aspect of it. But more than that, I think the piece is really just, like I said, it takes filth and elevates it into like poetry. Basically, it turns it into poetry. It turns it into like this poetic filth. It's really cool.
Yeah, Rudy, I like what you said, a magnum opus of filth. That's really the perfect way to put it, I think. But yeah, Tyler, thank you so much. And Rudy, don't mute your mic too quickly, because you're up next. And then after Rudy, Gabe is going to end the night here.
Okay. So I'm going to read from Pale Manipulator Music. I'll get the link. So Pale Manipulator Music is my thing about, oh, okay, you got it. Okay, so it's my thing about child soldiers. The hook of it basically is that these child soldiers stole a necromancer's Spotify premium account, and now her playlist has cursed them to live out the songs on the playlist. So that's kind of the hook of it. Basically, it's song fiction. I mean, that's what it is. But yeah, I'm gonna read at least 3 of these. But there's one I definitely want to read. It's called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. But I'll let someone else pick the other ones I'm gonna read, because I'm not too sure about which ones I'm gonna read. So somebody just pick, just random people, just
have you
throw
read
some out.
Superman yet?
I've read that one, but I'll just any of them. It doesn't matter if I read it or not.
Oh,
I'll
okay,
pick. So I'll do Superman. Got Mirror Mirror on the Wall. Pick one more. Somebody else get in there and pick one.
anyone, come on.
Come on. Don't be shy. Oops, I have to post the link here on the thing.
Young Forever. Young Forever. I want to be young forever.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that one. Just for you, Luca. Let's see here. So I'll start out with I guess I'll start out with Superman. That's one of my favorite ones, actually. It's the Chief Keef song Superman, which is one of my favorite Chief Keef songs. Okay, so Superman, inspired by Chief Keef's Superman, or Superheroes. I'm sorry, that's the name of the song. November 13th. Within the magic of a song is its ability to transport you to someplace else. Today, we are very much in the nethers of an elsewhere. We emerged early this morning in rain, with Josh, the commander, wading through confused apologetics from our two scouts, who were Corinne and John Paul, past tense. Corinne and John Paul's retirement works out for us. We are promoted to taking point. After the two of us receive our pink Scout Recon badges, bedazzled and glittering just as we are, we forge ahead through the wilderness. We find a highway to the north and follow it diligently, while others creep behind in the side gullies and brush. Our promotion has come with additional kit, a skateboard and 2 pairs of basketball shoes that feel like tap dancing on cotton. Kit may be a misnomer. Commandeered grave goods is probably better, though personal FX works best, I believe. We glide across the asphalt, levitating. A large green sign protests our march, so we fill it with holes before Nissa tells us to stop. She can read it. York, she cries out, running her fingers over the white patches that have not been completely aerated by 762. Josh is making a face. The word dork is so big in his head that I can see it from here, though he is not saying as much due to his unexpressed affections towards Nissa. A dork is the part of whales used for domesticating their females. I doubt he will domesticate Nissa unless it is with a stack of books or something heavier. Anne spies a great camp on a mountain. It is a foreboding structure that mimics the pines around it, with a roof of green and large awnings. Its position on the mountaintop means that the high breezes disperse its weird vibes onto us, Josh indicates. He says we must destroy it. Nissa disagrees, saying it is an asset to be studied. Josh is gesturing at a passage in the field manual, which he claims to have read, and Nissa is reading from it. Flare. The flare is a chemically charged shell that, when fired by a Dwarven mortar team, can reveal areas and enemies that are difficult to see or otherwise cloaked by invisibility or shadow meld. Nissa looks surprised. Josh folds his arms over his chest, nodding like Mussolini, the hidden character in Mario. The commander orders the mortar team forward. We will gain valuable intelligence from this, Josh assures everyone. Nissa just smiles. To our surprise, however, shots ring out, which, like the little girl emerging from the TV at 3 a.m., scares the shit out of everybody. One mortar man has sprung a leak. I start to rip my shirt, but the medic has already applied at least 3 band-aids. Someone says, carry this ammo to the tree line, so I do. It is me and Anne settled snugly in a ditch. Nissa is directing our fire at one of the turrets on the building, occasionally adjusting our rifle glyphs and saying things like 120 meters or 200 meters while we laugh and shoot. Nissa's gun has a laser pointer strategically appended to it with masking tape. Her bullets obey commands tirelessly. Zug zug. Our power is overwhelming, so we win. We are up the mountain faster than a speeding faggot running in tights that also run. Show your hands, we insist. It is a motley crew that has opposed us, but they're mostly our age, so it's all fair. They are led out one by one and asked to give names so that Nissa can create great markers. We afford them this because they fought well. Kaufman, one says. Josh coughs for effect. No one laughs, so he does it again. Then people do. Bergman, says another, presumably the NCO of the Cooks. Newman, a particularly diminutive one, says. He looks heartbroken. Fucking new guy, half our squad yells, tearing up with glee. You're old man today, friend. He is patted magnanimously on the shoulder, then around the waist where a sidearm is discovered, then his tennis shoes are slipped off, then he is beaten. A graying, short-statured officer locks eyes with Josh and says, Siegel, quietly. It seems they are out of mans, Josh chortles conspicuously. Is that like the bird? It's like your fucking mom, you little prick, he responds, smirking. Josh quick draws his revolver like he is in a Wild West movie, and there is a credible threat to his existence. Both of these are untrue currently, but the song is changing soon. They stare each other down. This bird is blowing a raspberry with his lips as Josh cracks open his revolver. I could stick a peace sign into the empty bullet rooms like I'm the Stooges blinding parallel worlds. If you win, bird, your men, fly. Go. Josh gestures. If I win, I am the one who is flying. We go. Josh spins the chamber and puts the gun to his own head. He pulls the trigger. Feels like the planet is spinning to counter us, in spite. Josh survives to spin again, then hands the weapon to the Seagull. When he brings the weapon to his wrinkly temple and fires, his gray-white particulates are thrown like dirty silverware against the front of the building. Ko-bang! Someone cries out. Nissa's jaw is on the ground when Josh saunters over. Trace amounts of disappointment hamper his gait. Today, I am not Superman. The next one I'm going to do is Forever, Young Forever. That's the one Luca requested there. This one's inspired by Death Cab for Cutie, those kids back in '99, I think the song is called. September 14th. At this moment, I am not having fun. This is because the office is no place for violence or fun, not ever. These words are not mine, but those of the UNICEF woman who has crawled into my head to inspect its contents. I am engaged in music therapy because I am very foolish. It was my loose mouth that let slip the facts about us stealing the Big One Spotify premium account. It is my feeling that we will now receive second punishments. The first and greatest punishment has been a process called demobilization, during which we have been made to remain without rifles in this hostile pastel and gray terrain. We must remain here and sit without truth or viable intelligence about the next objective. To limit a cavalry's maneuvering is to limit its usefulness. Idle cavalry are dead. My musician for the day is performing on a ukulele. It is a small guitar made smaller by the bloated woman playing it. But her chords are not those that play in my mind, something she must recognize since she is in my head loitering and reconnoitering. My memories have the sound of 7.62 being shot into persons, the striking of the body, the inside ballet of tumbling round, which is a finicky dance partner to bones, muscles, and soft tissue. I imagine those kids in the 99th, the first regiment to lay arms down to blue hats. The Big One sent spies after them, and our troops brought a great many back from the brink of motionless boredom. The rest were at the camp when we set fire to the grasses, and this fire leapt up like this, until it was hanging off of everything there, making them colder but also warmer. And the virtuoso is telling me not to move, but the fire in my head is making me, and her, now as well. My memories have the sound of crackling and former cavalry instruments squeaking useless in a field hollowed out, sitting like parked cars in a riot while fire eats even bones. Greedy fire. The chords repeat endlessly. I am repeating myself. I am not having fun. The musician snatches me into a bear hug, and we are dance tumbling down some stairs. Her grasp is motherly, suffocating. I lay prone on the landing. I sink into the ground and eventually skeletonize, demoted to infantry. So the last one I'm going to read is one I just wrote today or yesterday. It's a Migos song. Migos! The song is called Highway 89. I'm sorry, Highway 85. And it's probably one of the best Migos songs ever in a catalog of completely awesome fucking songs. So Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. July 29th. One thing that is known about the young and rich nation is that there are in it many wonders of metal and coltan, each possessing sorcerous powers. I am now 3 nights guarding the High Command's bunker in a cave outside of Atlantis, an important beehive of the nation that is filled mostly with black and yellow. Black is the color of its hearts, and yellow its minds, I am told. It was my understanding from playing cards that hearts are red, but I am no anatomist. When the witch doctor read my cards, he pulled the ace of spades and said, "Eventful happenings," which I paid no mind to until I witnessed one of our advanced units become like corn in a field, parting harmlessly around ghosts who did not die. Yellow is the color of my mind when I am considering whether or not to shoot longer than I am considering which cracks to step on. Red, or infrared, is the color of the drone's eye, which sees things before we can. I am seeing red because I am looking through the eyes of a drone here in the hallway outside of the room where friends with better KDAs direct our flying craft using light-up PlayStation paddles. Play has no limits. FOMO rises. I enter the drone hovel to ask a question. There is an officer in blue directing the soldiers, most of them repurposed cavalry like me. I see Nissa and nod to her. She is lit by controller light, veins bulging, and looks like waifu material. I am seeing into her 50-inch 4K screen. It's beautiful. The image is upside down. Her thin fingers twitch, and it is righted. The image pixelates. Big rockets appear and spiral into the distance. Did she fire them? Can I help you? Asks Officer Blue, whose kit and bleached bones betray him as one of the young and rich who betrayed them in death to join the big one's ranks. No, is not my answer. I say nothing and stare at the screen. No is the answer to the rocket question. They are not Nissas. More are emerging from behind her craft, and I realize as the view banks downward sharply that she is dodging them. She is being chased. A dog fight above the sunken city where men fight dogs for scraps or less. White is the color of ordnance falling on the persons hustling below. Nissa's drone is speeding down the highway. It is Star Wars, the Death Star scene, and death is still the star. On other screens, death is stealing the show, chewing the scenery. Here is one of our craft firing on a filling station. Here is one strafing a family in an empty city square. Here is several burial orderlies making a trench run with an explosive payoff. Target destroyed. Here is a mostly blank screen, a blue, shiny mirror with a question that my inability to read makes ominous. The skeletal officer is blue Abadi Abadai. If his face had skin, he would be blue in it, yelling orders at me. He is blue because he is a coward, but that is by design. I know the ways of skeletons. A rancor of flesh and blood must give him orders. Unmanned, he is shiftless, a scarecrow, a video game tutorial. He will not move against me. You are acting above your pay grade being here, he screeches. The room shakes with incoming, disturbing some dirt clods. A finger twiddler at the console nearest to my person looks at me with disgust, the kind of look one gives to a friend who doesn't know the level. Grow up, he sasses. Growth is above my pay grade. And that's it.
Oh man, that last line. Oh man, that's a killer. Like, I suppose literally. No, man, I'm not going to talk about the first two. You've read the first two before. I've commented on the first two before, but this last one is so fucking good. It is so like beautifully disorienting. I love like the juxtaposition of like the war as it's happening with the like virtual war on the screen, and the like fracturing out into multiple perspectives. I mean, this is a very short piece, but it is like, it covers a lot of territory, and it does so in this like wonderfully like hallucinogenic and disorienting way that that I think rocks. And as usual, like, there's all the wordplay and shit. Oh man, actually, on that, in the second piece that you read, or was it the first piece, was the punishment thing a reference to 6-page manual, or was I overthinking that?
Oh, which one?
You said
Oh, the
second
Young Forever
punishment.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, I
Okay,
know nobody's
okay.
gonna get that, but yeah, nobody will. Yeah.
Well, one person got it.
Yeah.
But no, I love this most recent one, and I really, it's reminiscent of like some of my favorite scenes in war films and films like Apocalypse Now. The scenes, the sequences that really like take the war apart and transport it to a level of like pure absurd horror, where you lose the sense of even like the humanity of war, or like the human costs of war, and it becomes like pure terrifying spectacle. And I don't know, I think you really,
That's definitely one of my goals. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it's just spectacle. That's, yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. So, Gabe, you're last up tonight.
Can you guys hear me with that AC in the background?
Yeah, I can't hear the AC at all.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you sound good.
Sweet. Yeah, like a lot of you, I'm sure. I'm still just thinking about Lizzie every day and stuff, and it's sort of just beyond the heartbreak of it, just like making me fucking senile in a way. And I think that's something we're all kind of sharing, is just like the loss of words, and sort of maybe some of us the loss of function in a way. But it feels fucking masochistic to do this, like to assign myself with her obituary basically for Lit Reactor. But it's like, I wanted to just do something just in case no one else did. I didn't want to see that happen. So I played it pretty straight. I have tons of personal things to say, but they're all just kind of personal and stuff. And I kind of wanted to just more like Will and Rudy did a couple of weeks ago, just sort of facilitate an opportunity for people to write thoughts about her. So for this first part, I guess, let me know if I'm missing anything. Like if there's something, if you were going to read an obituary of someone you really loved, like Lizzie, let me know if I'm just spacing on anything. Last month, the literary village suffered and continues to mourn the immeasurable loss of firebrand author Elizabeth V. Aldrich, known to the community as Eris, as Lizzie to her closer circle, and father, James Allnut. She would be 30 years old this fall. Lizzie's prolific output, found primarily at online transgressive venues, would help coin and further define the term cyber writing, a phrase that began as tongue-in-cheek before it would mirror a generation of outsider writers who began wielding it with absolute sincerity. Many who saw Lizzie as the infernal head of this underground cultural comment. In 2020, Expat Press released her debut novel, Ruthless Little Things, and a cumulative declaration of her euphoric glitter-littering confessionals that would bring a distinctly modern experimental style to the at-risk youth diary form. Her amoral wind tunnel prose could transfuse a wide-eyed ecstasy into the reader's consciousness, disarming as it could be empowering or legitimately dangerous. Beyond its unanimous underground acclaim, RLT proved scholarly in 2021 when David Vichnar, however you say it, would include it in his syllabus at Charles University in Prague. Off the page, she was outspoken about her longtime BPD diagnosis, and as a result, Lizzie destigmatized the often maligned and misunderstood disorder of our times. Her irreverent humor, deep sighing kindness, and unjaded enthusiasm would stand in sincere defiance of similar stereotypes others appeared doomed to. When free from her tireless maternity to hungry ghost and the subsequent debts to society, Lizzie's Friday nights were spent in near religious commitment at Misery Loves Company online reading series, an adopted family to her and many others who forge a unique bond through the intimacy of outsider prose and poetry. Then during the off-camera after hours where anything went. On July 15th, the reading series would become a memorial for Lizzie, a night that would host its largest turnout to date. Writers and readers from all over the world, let's be honest, 90% broken-hearted men, sharing stories and sentiments in her tribute for over 4 hours. It would have been easy to keep going if it wasn't so fucking hard. Eva forever. No one captured the raw eschatological ecstasy of the era like her, no one. She was as rapturous as she was damaged, lived by seconds. Manuel Marrero, founder of Expat Press, author of Not Yet. I don't need to say how good Lizzie's writing was. It's out there, living on, and its irrefutable power speaks for itself. She was so much more than her writing. She was a renegade light that burned in cheerful opposition to her own darkness. She never made any apologies, and she never demanded any either. She was one of the few people around whom I felt comfortable enough to really be myself, largely because she was so forthrightly herself. She never measured her words. She had an airy, lighthearted weightlessness, seemingly unencumbered by self-consciousness. It was infectious. More than that, she had a way of celebrating you, of making you feel like you could shed petty hang-ups and anxieties, as if you were shrugging off that extra layer of clothing you thought you needed to guard against an imagined cold. Her warmth made you realize you never needed it in the first place. I've rarely felt as content and serene as I did in quiet moments spent with her. Los Angeles feels desolate and empty without her. Chandler Morrison, author of Thigh Gap. Eris was one of the first writers I found through the scene. So through her, I found there was a whole community writing transgressive and out there writing. That was one of the happiest days of my life. Seeing this queer girl who was like Bret Easton Ellis for the Trump era was so fucking exciting, and it validated everything. Alexandrine Ogundimu, author of Agitation. Lizzie's loss is a deep wound, not only for those who knew her, but for literature in general. However, her legacy is now firmly cemented. Decades from now, we'll still be feeling the influence of ruthless little things and writers who will come after her. Beyond her writing talents, Lizzie was unfailingly selfless in promoting other writers and commenting on their work. Despite the troubles she faced, she never lost her sense of wonder and curiosity. She had a genuine interest in other people's lives and tried to learn all she could from them. I'll remember her as one of the finest writers I've worked with and a close friend who had an immensely positive impact on my life. Matt Forney, founder, editor-in-chief of Terror House Press. I don't know how to talk about her yet or to who. It feels obscene and inappropriate. I type a thought and delete it. She was central to everyone and everything. Her presence had many meanings, all of them burning, sometimes all at once. I think it's some kind of cosmic joke that she, who wrote her fucking ass off and absolutely devoured literature and writers, would leave so many of us without words. Derek Main, author of Characters. She was a diamond in the rough. Eris existed in a separate circle than I, but she showed me kindness by acknowledging me as a fellow human being. She held no judgments on people's appearance or material, and her writing came from the heart. Courtney Shembry Gray, assistant editor at A Thin Slice of Anxiety. Eris was a true outsider artist in a world where most people just wear the costume. She was a real outlaw, always pushing the envelope. Yet she always seemed to give everyone the time of day and would just be so enthused to support everyone. She didn't seem bitter or misanthropic as you might expect with someone in her shoes. Jesse Hilson, author of Blood Trip, founder of Prism Thread Books. It wouldn't be right to say that Eris had no filter. Her insightful commentary that seemed to laser target endorphins was testament enough to that, as was her constantly changing Snapchat background and calls. What she lacked was a barrier, a retaining wall for her uncontained outpourings of positivity. And the absence of that, the complete honesty and lack of pretense in her musings, brought so many people close to her. She was a smasher of personal creative gates, of imposter syndrome feelings, of stasis. I first met Lizzie in my inbox. Someone she loved had recently died. Oh, sorry, that was Rudy Johnson, editor at Misery Tourism. Sorry, Rudy. I first met Lizzie in my inbox. Someone she loved had recently died, and she had just read my first book, and she wanted to connect and talk about death and love. She knew how to really communicate online. She was honest and real from the get-go, even when she might have been playing with persona. She had a sharp, wild mind. One of the last times we chatted, I told her I loved Ruthless Little Things and that I was sending a copy to a friend overseas. I admitted that I was scared to release my next book, and she sent a perfectly Eris response. Heart, scared means it's going to be epic. I think she knew that it's only real when the stakes are real. The things her spirit made possible will live forever. Lindsay Lerman, author of What Are You? Even now, weeks after hearing that Eris passed, I do not know what to say. I have no words. I don't know how to rationalize or contextualize or even simply express the magnitude of this loss. I just saw a tweet about a gargantuan hole in space, a massive formless void where, by all reason, there should be so much substance, so much light. It's a crass, obvious metaphor, unworthy of her. But when everything is dark, you have to use whatever your hands can grasp, sightless. At her memorial, I saw authors who cannot stand each other, who hate each other because of politics or personalities, because of the principled narcissism that all creatives except her seem to share, cry together, united briefly in grief. Her talent, her compassion, her generosity, her enthusiasm, and her light penetrated and transcended all arbitrary borders and boundaries, annihilated all pettiness, all bullshit. Every artist who met her saw her and loved her. Every artist who met her felt seen and loved. I don't know how our literary universe can survive her absence. William Duria, editor at Misery Tourism. When we describe something as fire-like, we mean that a thing is unafraid, it is fast, it is ungovernable. Lizzie lived this way, a vast field where wildflowers are bright and scent intense and alive. She was in the middle of it, at the center of everything. The last time I saw her alive in person was the only time I saw her alive in person. Otherwise, we were friends online, living online like we all do. We read together at Stories Books in Los Angeles, her, myself, Elizabeth Ellen, and Mick Grantham. Lizzie met us at the bar up the street. She wanted to come with her. She wanted me to come with her in the bathroom while she did her hair and makeup. It felt like being in one of her stories, like we had been teenage besties for years. The bathroom with its dingy fluorescent lighting, the grubby mirror, painted metal bathroom stalls. It all moved so quick. So much happened that my brain deletes details. It doesn't burn into memory the way I wish it did. I wish I could recall the content of our conversations. I could only remember the aliveness in her eyes and the earnest way she held her mouth. I can only recall the way she read at stories, embarrassingly, not the content of her words. I recall the essence of her, the experience of her, how she read her work from her phone, confident and casually, but also running words together, missing sentences, scrolling past mistakes only to keep reading, her stream of consciousness complicated and tightly knit, something which felt composed but was also a symptom of inexplicable and unteachable talent. You can feel this essence too if you read her work, unquenchable and immortal. Lizzie is like that, the fire in the big open fields, eating it all up. I think she is still out there. L. Nash, author of Gag Reflex. Eris and Furs by James Newlick, author of Lazy Eyes. I knew something was wrong when I texted her on Kafka's birthday, July 3rd, and she didn't respond. We both had iPhones, something we joke about on occasion. Thank God you're not an Android user. I don't think I could be friends with you if you were. I knew she saw my text message because of the delivered red notification. It wasn't the first time she'd ignored me. Sometimes she went days without answering. Then a message would appear on my phone as if from a distant star. A girl shortened, is that Elysium? I love you so much. I figured she was with someone, yet something troubled me because I was James and she was Elizabeth and we both loved Kafka, a private joke shared between us. They beckon you like whores, she texted me on the previous July 3rd, a reference to a line in my novel Valencia about Kafka spilking at a sandwich shop, unable to decide. Drugs and sandwiches, they beckon you like whores. Maybe she's on a bender, I jokingly told my partner Angelo. I'd just been in a terrible car accident and was in the process of moving to a new apartment, so I brushed it aside, my own life too full, if I could just catch my breath. She was the only woman I felt comfortable enough admitting I wanted to have a vagina, if just for a weekend, to feel a man's weight on me, to feel him filling me with liquid hate. It's not that big of a deal, she said in typical Eris irreverence. You can have mine, she giggled, laughing like a malnourished delinquent. I'd love to be a boy for a weekend, so maybe we can trade. After our mutual confession, I wrote a poem for her. I am neither boy nor girl, I am in between. I have forever now, and always been. A virus was eating my brain, my frontal lobes blackened with doubt. Was she holed up with someone, a daiquiri-haired ersatz boy, or a meth-smudged long-haired rat, a dangerous entity who had only bad intentions? I texted her again on July 5th. Why are you ignoring me, LOL? This time it didn't say delivered. It was only my text bubble, unacknowledged, dangling embarrassingly into the void. I love you, I texted, and left it at that. She would have the last laugh. Death is your friend, she once told me over the phone, shortly after getting out of jail. You taught me that. Now I wish I hadn't. Some things aren't worth learning. You will always be Elizabeth to me. You're far too glamorous, far too important to be foreshortened to Eris. I love you so much.
Gabe, that it's beautiful, and I think it's a fitting tribute. You know, I really like the way you've constructed this with the obituary, with your little tribute, and then with all the quotes, and then with Newlick rather, his longer tribute. I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about this shit. It's still hard for me to talk about this shit, you know? But I do think, oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, sorry about that. I do think, oh, sorry, Derek.
That was probably one of the most fitting troll interruptions of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Eris coming back pissed off that we're being so maudlin.
Yeah, no shit. No, Newlick and I were talking the other night, like like we both agreed, like the only way we can get through this is just like imagine her just laughing at us.
Yeah.
Like not somehow managing to not take this as seriously as we are. I don't know. And like Al said, it just seems, it still just totally seems like she's out there. And maybe that's just our collective dissociation or denial, but I don't know. It
does. It
yeah.
does. Oh, John.
If it helps, she wrote a poem that I think she read at Misery Loves Company way back. It was basically along the lines of, after I'm dead, you guys are going to say a whole bunch of things about me. It's all going to be very nice and pretentious, and you're going to be wrong. and I'm gonna come back and call you all idiots.
Oh my god! Wait, did she read that at MLC?
Yeah. It was first
When
year,
was
I
that?
think.
I
want- it's in-
vaguely, I feel like unless I'm projecting, I feel like I totally remember that.
I can get you the date. I'm pretty sure it's September 2020, but
Oh wow.
I can
Oh, that
be
would have
sure.
been before my time though. But it sounds so much like her, and
It does.
that kind of centered me a little bit, as warped as it is.
Yeah, if you can find the link to that, John, maybe I'll go back and watch it at some point. Man, I don't even sad that I don't even quite remember that, but
I mean, unless you're a psychopath going through everything, why would?
the true psychopathic thing to do is to go back and just watch yourself.
I brought this up the other day on Twitter, but yeah, the most cathartic thing and just like haunting thing to me so far is just like at the memorial, Gigi just like politely muting himself and just screaming "fuck" at the top of his lungs. That was just like, like that was kind of like for all of us. That
Do what you
couldn't,
gotta do
know?
sometimes.
Yeah.
She read it September 25th, 2020.
Okay. Thanks, John. So, oh, sorry. I thought someone was about to say something. No. So I think, unless anyone has anything else to say, I think we'll call it there. I think we'll end tonight on that note. Of course, I will leave the Zoom meeting up as I always do, but I think we'll end the reading there. Thank you to everyone who read tonight. Tonight has been a legitimately epic night. Like so many of the pieces read tonight were just, I don't know, just really grand, and a lot of people who maybe have not been here recently were able to make it tonight, so that's very nice. And I don't know, guys, it's so nice to be able to be here and to be in your company and to hear you read and to hear you share your shit and to be constantly fucking impressed by the work that you do. And you fucking take care of yourself, guys, okay? Anyway, that's it. This has been Misery Loves Company. As I said at the top, we do this every fucking week. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be back next Friday at that time. If anyone is welcome to come and share their work, anyone is welcome to come and just hang out. We tweet out the Zoom link just before we begin from our Twitter account @Misery Tourism. And fuck it, guys. Thanks again for coming. That's it.